The town of Plainville. Established in 1721 at the geographical center of Connecticut.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our town council meeting. Tonight is Monday, May 6, 2019. We will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and Councilman Lazarco.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a piece of business to take care of. Oh, I'm looking for a motion to ratify the public hearing.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to ratify a public hearing for Monday, May 6, 2019 at 7 o'clock in the Municipal Center to hear public comment regarding the Town Council's fiscal year 2020 Board of Education budget.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So we do not have any presentations tonight, but we have two public hearings on our agenda, and I'm going to ask our town clerk to please read the notice.
Thank you. Notice is hereby given that the Plainville Town Council will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Monday, May 6, 2019, in the council chambers of the Municipal Center, 1 Central Square, to hear public comments and consider proposals for the 2019 Neighborhood Assistance Act, dated at Plainville, Connecticut, the 2nd day of May.
Just about got through that, didn't you?
Just about. Can't wait for the next one.
I was waiting for Mike to jump in. Thank you very much. We'll take up the first item under our public hearing. It's the 2019 Neighborhood Assistance Act. This has been published. Robert, can you just say a few words about it for those that are here that may not be familiar? And then I will open up a public hearing for that particular portion of our comment section tonight.
The Neighborhood Assistance Act is a state program that allows nonprofits to apply for tax benefits for those corporations that choose to make donations to them. It requires the governing body of the town, in Plainville, the town council, to review the applications and to recommend them to be included in the state program. We have 5 applications that have been made. One is from the Congregational Church of Plainville, United Church of Christ, and you can see what they wanted to, what they plan on doing if they get the donations. We also received another one from Park, Inc., P-A-R-C. A third one from the Plainville Early Learning Center, Inc. From the Prudence Crandall Center, Inc. And a second one from the Prudence Crandall Center, Inc. So that's a total of 5 applications.
Okay, thanks for the explanation. I'll now open up public comment regarding the 2019 Neighborhood Assistance Act. Does anybody wish to speak to this particular one? Please step to the microphone, and we need your name and address. Does anybody wish to speak? Anybody over here that I'm not seeing? No? Nobody behind the TV? All right. I'll ask one more time. Does anybody wish to speak to the first public hearing notice? Okay, I will close that portion of the public hearing. And the second portion of our public hearing has to do with the Board of Education budget FY 2020. We have a number of people that have sent to us emails. We also have a number of people that have signed a list to speak. But before we begin that, our town manager, Robert Lee, is going to give an overview about the process within which we use to vote on our townwide budget and make an explanation about what the next steps are before we go forward. So at this point, I'll turn that over to Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Last Tuesday, the voters rejected the Board of Education budget with 372 voting yes and 384 voting no. 6.62% of the eligible taxpayers voted last week. A total of 397 persons responded to the advisory questions, with 381 saying the budget was too high and 16 saying the budget was too low. 96% of those who answered the advisory questions indicated that the education budget was too high. The charter requirements, and the last charter revision was in November 6th of 2012, reads, at least the pertinent portion of the charter reads, the town budget and Board of Education budget shall be adopted separately by a majority vote of those attending and entitled to vote. Should the town meeting fail to adopt a budget at the first meeting, called on the last Tuesday in April, the town council, in conjunction with the manager, shall revise the rejected budgets in accordance with the majority results from the advisory question. A second town meeting to adopt the revised budget shall be called on the second Tuesday in May for final approval. The council may conduct such public hearings and/or informational meetings as it may deem necessary, and that's the purpose of this evening's public hearing. This is the first time that either the town or education budgets have been defeated since the town charter was amended in 2012. Under the town charter, the town council is required to lower the education budget from the one that was voted on last week. After the budget vote, the town council decided to hold a public hearing before making any decisions on how much to reduce the education budget. So that's the purpose of, again, the purpose of tonight's public hearing is for the town council to hear from the public before they make a decision. That is the purpose. After the public hearing is concluded, the town council will continue with their agenda. The town council has scheduled action on the proposed education budget under new business later in the meeting. A second vote will then be held a week from tomorrow on Tuesday, May 14th, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Voting will occur at the Firehouse on West Main Street. Town charter requirements regarding the second vote reads, should the town meeting fail to adopt one or both budgets after the second meeting, the town council, in conjunction with the manager, shall revise the rejected budget in accordance with the majority results from the advisory question. Very similar to the first part, except in this particular instance, once those adjustments are made, that'll be deemed finally adopted by the town meeting, and expenditures shall be made in accordance therewith. Please note that the town council can only reduce the bottom line amount of the education budget. The Board of Education has full control over how the bottom line amount will be spent. And also please note that the education budget that did not pass last week totaled $38,329,105. This was $1,006,193 higher than the current year's budget.
Okay, thank you. So that's an explanation about our charter and the rules that govern how we proceed with our votes on both the town budget and the Board of Education budget, and those are the steps we're going to be taking next. So hopefully that's clear. In addition to Mr. Lee's comments prior to our public hearing, I'm going to invite Superintendent Brummett to the podium. She asked if she could say a few words, and if you would be so kind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to say good evening to the town manager Lee and members of the town council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak about the Board of Education's budget in light of the recent referendum vote in which it was defeated by 12 votes. Being aware that the town charter's requirement that the council must reduce the budget under these circumstances, I approached Mr. Lee on Wednesday about what the reduction might be. He indicated somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000. I did express my dismay about the significance of the cut and that it would most certainly mean reductions to programs and staff. We did speak about the fact that the board cut close to $200,000 from the budget, bringing it from a 3.4% increase to a 3% increase before it was considered by the town council on March 21st. On that date, the budget was reduced by another $113,000, bringing it to a 2.7% increase. The entirety of the budget is driven by contractual increases in benefits with a slight increase in utilities. The rest of the budget, including professional services, repairs, transportation, equipment, and dues and fees, have all been reduced from last year's funding levels. On Wednesday, May 1st, the day after the budget vote, I convened an emergency meeting of my administrative team. After meeting for several hours, it was agreed that while we don't want to cut anything from the budget due to the impact, the following are likely cuts to the board's budget if a reduction in the amount of $200,000 is made. It is important to note that neither my administrative team nor the board, who met on May 2nd to discuss cuts, wanted to prioritize these cuts at that time. So these reductions are not in any order of importance. They are all very important. What would be reduced should the budget be cut by $200,000 or in that arena would be a new special education teacher for students with autism at Plainville High. This was already offset by the reduction of 2 tutors that are no longer in the budget. The position was designed to support current 8th graders who are coming to PHS next year with special needs. A reduction of the teacher of the hearing impaired to part-time. We will need to reallocate some of her services to other professionals such as speech pathologists or consultants, and some sign language classes will be eliminated. A new social studies teacher at Plainville High, which would have been offset by the reduction of an art teacher who is no longer in the budget. This position was recommended by NEASC, which is an accreditation committee, given our large social studies class sizes at Plainville High. The reduction will create class sizes in social studies that may exceed contractual limits and will reduce certain elective offerings. A literacy tutor at Wheeler. This was offset by a retiring tutor position at Linden that is no longer in the budget and was going to be reassigned to Wheeler due to large class sizes in grade 5, struggling readers in grade K2, and a high percentage of English language learners at Wheeler. A partial reduction of some middle school sports. At this time, we're unable to determine how we would reduce sports, but we have provided the town council and the public tonight with what the proposed budget is for the middle school sports, and there would need to be a reduction of $40,000. The remaining cuts include advanced placement textbooks and elementary supplies that are already lean due to several years of budget freezes. I want to sincerely thank the town council tonight, as I have enjoyed our 3 years together and our collaborative relationship. We have weathered numerous bad budget years that included substantial cuts to education cost sharing grants, referred to as ECS, and catastrophic insurance increases last year. In spite of this, we have together striven to ensure that our town education services have been maintained and in some instances slightly enhanced. We know things are uncertain at the state for a variety of reasons. However, we do know that the ECS grant is going up substantially next year by more than $260,000. Additionally, in a recent conversation with Representative Matt Ritter, he told me that state revenues are looking better for next year. I realize there's still a lot of uncertainty with the budget still being developed. Once again, I thank you wholeheartedly for this opportunity to speak this evening and hope that you carefully consider the comments from the residents of Plainville this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Brummett. In addition to the comments made by our town manager and superintendent of schools, the town council has also received a number of emails, pretty much all today. There were 26 of them. And I'm going to read the names of the folks that submitted these emails. I am not going to read the entire email. This would be prohibitively long, but I can tell you that I will recognize those who took the time to write to us. And in general summation, all of them asked that the town council not reduce the Board of Education budget. So, with the names, and I'll do my best, and I hope I get them mostly right. One was from Christopher Clark, Val Dumay, Alexis Graff, Erica Graff, Abigail Egan, Lisa Eligata, I hope that I did okay with that one, John and Elisa Eligata, Jeffrey Blanchette, Danielle Schnuffer, Michelle Rogan, Thea Beatty, Kristen Boyles, Kristen Campbell, Lynn's AYK, I don't know if that's short for a different name, but that was the name on the email. Crystal Sear, Carissa Billings, Marie Clark, Taryn Emery, Rebecca Cook, Abigail Egan, Sarah Ellis, Christine Pringle, Nicole DiCarlo, James Sear, Stacy Krizkowski, Candace Kochowski, Susan Powers. Thank you. Those are the folks that wrote to us today. We got these throughout the day. Most of them arrived late in the afternoon. I did read them all, and they were all opposed to reductions in the Board of Education budget. So we will keep that as part of our file for this evening's public hearing. If anybody wishes to see them, they're welcome to come to the town manager, and he can direct us as to how we can get those to people. All right. Having said that, we're going to now open up the public hearing. I have a list of folks that have signed to speak. We'll begin with number 1. She did read it. Oh, did you read the public hearing for the Board of Ed? Oh, okay. Would you do that? Thanks. Too much stuff going on here.
I know. Notice is hereby given that the
Thank you.
Plainville Town Council will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 6th at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the Municipal Center, 1 Central Square, for the purpose of hearing public comment on the Town Council's fiscal year 2020 Board of Education budget, dated at Plainville, Connecticut, this 2nd day of May.
Thank you again. Okay. We'll begin. Rachel Posner. Okay. Good. I'm getting some helpful hints here as we proceed. We have a lot of people here that have signed up to speak, and I suspect there may be others that haven't signed up. You will be given 3 minutes. Please state your name and address. And the next person that's going to be speaking is Karen Makarov. Did I get that right? Sunrise Terrace. So if you want to sort of line up behind Rachel, we can keep this moving along, okay? All right, Rachel.
Nobody interpreting for me. The reason why nobody's interpreting for me is because I want you to see what the children go through all day with our services. You have to work with me. Now, teachers who work in public school have a number of maybe 26, 27 kids per class. Can they possibly work with one deaf child if they don't have the support services in place? So what happens when that happens? Communication barriers, okay? And one of the reasons why we moved to Plainville, I have all the time in Connecticut, is because it's such a small town feel. And it gives direct attention to my kids, and they've been nothing but loving and supportive of my needs for my children, because as a deaf adult myself, who better knows what my children need, right? So I was very disappointed when I heard that you want to cut the teacher of the deaf services, because one of the most promising things that they do is pre and post teaching. Why? Because ASL is their first language, which means they don't learn the English context. So if they don't have that pre and post teaching, they fall behind in English. Then they fall behind in reading. Then they fall behind in testing. And then before you know it, they have a hard time getting into college. They have a hard time being on level with their peers. You're setting my kids up to fail when you take away the teacher of the deaf services, because you're basically giving them just enough. But they need so much more than hearing people. So why would you take more away from them, knowing that they need more than hearing children do? So that didn't make sense to me. The other pro to having a teacher of the deaf is the parent-teacher home and school relationship, okay? A teacher, I'm sorry. Deaf children often get a blank face when they don't understand something, but they're not going to raise their hand in class and be like, "Hi, I'm sorry, I can't understand." The last thing they want to do is hide, okay? So a teacher of the deaf can come in and observe the classroom and look at the child and notice his face is changing and be like, something's not right. Communicate with me, communicate with the teacher, and bring us all together on the same page. But if they're not there, then who's going to do it? The hearing teacher is not trained for that. You might get lucky and have a hearing teacher who took a cute little ASL class in college, but that doesn't teach the deaf culture and the day-to-day work that you do with the children, my children in particular. Social and emotional needs. Okay. In deaf culture, children tend to tap a lot. They tend to be expressive. They bang, they're loud. If you don't have the right person in the corner, they might consider those children aggressive behavior, problematic and they get put on like this kind of behavior code. But that's not true. When my son taps me, I'm thrilled because he's just tall. If he doesn't do that, then nobody's going to pay attention to him. So we have a teacher of the deaf who comes into the classroom and they're able to explain to the teacher, it's not behavior, it's deaf culture. Do you know deaf culture to be able to explain that to me? No. So how do
Rachel?
you expect the teachers in school to know?
Your time is up. I appreciate your 3 minutes are up, and I appreciate you coming to the podium and explaining that to us. Thank you very much. Okay, Karen, the next one up, I'm going to ask the next three people. Okay. I'm going to actually have the folks that signed up. Mrs. Posner, I'm going to have these folks that signed up to speak. So the person up next is Karen, next is Benjamin Gideon, next is Laurel Schwartz. So if you could kind of get yourselves over to this area so that we can keep everybody moving along, I'd really much appreciate that. Thank you so much. Karen.
Okay. Karen Makarov, 2 Sunrise Terrace. I want to state that I'm in favor of the Board of Education budget as presented. And for the record, I don't have any children in the school age, so I'm here as a resident. The town council is requiring the Board of Ed to reduce their budget by $200,000. While that's only less than 0.5% of the total Plainville budget, it is 19.87% of the proposed increase from the Board of Ed, which is a ridiculous amount to ask them to cut. How did the council decide on $200,000 as a figure to decrease by? Is it an arbitrary number? Can it be changed to, let's say, 5% at $50,000 or 2%? I've lived here for 12 years, and I know that in 2012 we separated the budgets, but to me it's a mentality of pitting the town against the Board of Ed. And we approve one, we don't approve the other. That means we can't take money from the town and provide it to the Board of Ed. So I think that we need to spend time over the next year looking at our whole budget process and deciding as residents how we might better mirror other towns that do it well. How can we justify our town employees of getting a 2% raise, but yet cut $200,000 from our Board of Education? How can we justify hiring a superintendent a few years ago, but yet tie her hands from implementing valuable ideas? And how can we cut our budget by a majority vote of 12 people? I mean, if 16 people voted that the budget was too low and 12 people were the difference of what it was voted down by, how do we know those 12 didn't say it was too low, so therefore don't pass the budget? To me, 12 people is just not enough. We need to have a minimum number to be able to reject any budget or to pass any budget. Quality education and associated activities such as sports and others really allow our children to choose this Plainville school system. We really have the chance of our children choosing a correct school or another school and having to pay tuition to other school systems by simply cutting sports or by the deaf services, as Ms. Posner had said. I guess my last point is to the Board of Ed. Of all the things to cut, why would we cut special ed? Why would we cut sports? I would recommend that we all advocate together to the town council to make the reductions as small as possible. And I applaud the idea of the Board of Ed choosing something that was so important to people to get us to come out to this hearing. What we really need to do is advocate for a voting process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gideon, next is Laurel Schwartz and then Lauri Peterson. So if you could get yourselves ready. Mr. Gideon.
Hello, I'm Benjamin Gideon, 5 Dickman Road. I am speaking today as a parent of 4 children, 2 of which are still in the high school, and also as the president of the PHS Athletic Backers Club. I wish I had done more research and outreach to people in town about how important voting in favor of the previous Board of Ed budget was. I wasn't happy with the previous budget, but I could at least understand some of the cuts. I attended the Board of Ed finance meeting Thursday night so I could be as informed as possible what was going to be cut to decrease the budget. The reductions and cuts that are being proposed now are unacceptable, and every member of the Board of Education that were in attendance that night agreed that these cuts are not in the best interest of our children. I have seen firsthand how important the middle school sports program benefits our kids. Not only do they work as a feeder program for high school sports, they have there have been numerous studies about the direct correlations of how sports have a positive impacts on academics, disciplinary issues, and attendance rates. My son is a perfect example. Without the demanding guidelines to participate in sports, I'm not sure he would have made it through middle school or high school and become the man he is today. Sports teach kids about teamwork, time management, accountability, and leadership. As far as the cuts to the other areas, those are equally unacceptable. The social studies department is already understaffed and has overcrowded classrooms. It was bad enough that the retiring art teacher was going to be replaced with a social studies teacher. At least I could understand that. Now neither position will be filled and will have a negative impact on class sizes and our accreditation with NEASC. I've been very fortunate that none of my children have needed the special ed services, but I know many parents in town whose children do need those services and rely on them for a proper education and help with preparing their children for the next step in life. There was already cuts in the original budget. The additional cuts in this proposal are borderline cruel. And in my opinion, these cuts are setting up the Board of Education for lawsuits and expensive litigation. I can't even imagine what that would do to the budget. Plainville is a small, tight-knit community with an amazing school system. These proposed cuts jeopardize our children's future as well as our property values. In all reality, we all know why people with young children move to town and why Plainville parents choose to stay in town. It's the school system and all the amazing opportunities it provides for a well-rounded education, setting their kids up for the next step in life. As a parent, a volunteer, and a community member, I am asking the council to please send back the original budget with very minor cuts, and I promise I will do my best getting the word out to make sure it passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say you've missed one name when you were reading off the emails? Faith Emery. She's a 7th grader at middle school, at the Plainville Middle School.
I understand that. Yes, thank you.
Hello, I'm Laurel Schwartz, 2 Seneca Road. I am a parent. I'm also a teacher at the Middle School of Plainville. We are running on a tight budget. I know it looks like a big number. It's not a big number. The children in Plainville are coming to school, and I'm aging myself. I've been in Plainville about a quarter of a century now, teaching, and the children are coming in needier with more emotional needs. They are traumatized by things that they're seeing in their homes. We have parents that are incarcerated. We have one child told me the other day that he's waiting till 21. He really hopes desperately that he can wait till 21 before he gets arrested, because that's the path of his life. I have another child. I just sat down with that parent today, and we had a parent meeting about the child, and we looked at grades, and I was with the assistant principal, and she said, and the parent goes, look at these grades. These are D's and F's. Now they're A's and B's. Why? He goes, well, sports. This is a child that could be involved. He was very honest. He can go the wrong path. He can go to drugs. He knows he can do things that's going to end up in the police. He's flitted that way already. Sports is the only thing that is keeping him on track. We have so many needs in Plainville. It's a big, big bucket, and we are trying our best. Those special ed teachers are working their tails off. The amount of needs. I, in my classroom, when I have a child of special needs, if that child is losing it because they are overwhelmed by the social or emotional demands or the academic demands, they need someplace safe to go. You're graduating an 8th grade class that needs that help desperately. Services for the deaf. I can just say that Ellen right here, dear God, my poor little boy who's in chorus, who's in pain with his hearing aids. We don't know what to do. We're just music teachers. We call in for our expert, and she comes immediately so he doesn't have to be in pain in class, and he can still access his free and appropriate education. If we don't have people like Ellen there helping our children, what do? Say, sorry, honey, you can't come in the room because it hurts your hearing aids? These are the real things we do in school. Almost every teacher I know is feeding children. Kids are so hungry in this town. Every teacher is talking to kids, trying to boost them up. This is really hard, and I know you're doing the best you can, and I appreciate your efforts, but please do not cut the budget. My apologies, I have to go home. I have a child by herself.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, Lauri Peterson, then Laurie Consalvo, then Deb Hardy.
Lauri Peterson, 10 Tremolo Avenue, member of the Board of Ed. It is very disappointing that the Board of Ed budget did fail to pass. However, the Town Council will make their decision, and I do encourage everyone to get out and vote on May 14th. When we don't vote, this is what happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Laurie Consalvo, 5 Coral Court. I'm also a member of the Board of Education. I don't normally speak at these things, but I am speaking tonight in regards to the failed budget. Our budget hasn't failed in the past 7 years, and I just feel as a board member that we really need to promote the budget, inform the public, and provide them with the knowledge of what we went into the budget and why the budget that we put forth works. As a board member, I don't feel the public was well informed as to the enormous cuts that were made during our budget sessions. These sessions were open to the public. This budget started at a 3.44%, and the reason for the higher costs this year was due to the health insurance increases, which we've talked about many times, as well as the Wheeler project costs. We all spent hours pulling apart this budget line by line at a time. We asked Steve, Sam, and Maureen to show us what different percentages would look like, and we were able to decrease it to 3.0%. The people that came to these meetings, they weren't happy about this. But as a board who cares about the taxpayers as well as our students, we did our job as board members, and we stood by this budget, and we presented it to the council where, again, it got reduced down to 2.7. But it was something that we all worked on together. We agreed on it. It's not an easy thing. But right now, there's no more room for cushion. There's no more room for cutting in this budget. We've cut in many places. So when you say, why are you cutting special education? Why are you cutting sports? We've cut everywhere. We've gone home at night and we've stared at these line by line by line, figuring out where can we cut. So it's not just that we're saying, okay, well now we're going to cut sports to get everybody in an uproar. We're cutting it because there's nothing else left to cut. We need to be concerned as to how this is going to affect our children, our accreditations, as well as our property values. Property values are based on the education system in your town. The higher your education system is with like a blue ribbon school or accredited school, which we are very accredited, the more valuable your real estate is. So a lot of homeowners need to understand that. I understand there are 11,500 registered voters in town, and only 768 showed up to vote, which was a good turnout because normally we don't have that many. Now, out of 11,500 registered voters, we need you to turn out and vote. It's very important. We don't want to have situations like this where, the voters didn't speak. Sorry.
It's okay. If you can sum up, your
All
time
right.
has expired. If you have a
I
few more
apologize.
words to
Okay.
say, that's fine.
I just think that we all need to work together. I think that we should try to find a number that I know it needs to be reduced, but if we can reduce it $100 for each voter that voted no, this would take us to a $38,100 reduction. Our town is known for having an excellent school system, and I just feel that we all need to work together to come to
Thank you.
a good number. Thank you.
Next three up are Deb Hardy, Jacqueline from Farm Hill Drive, and Catherine LaBella. If you could be prepared to step up, we'll keep moving this along.
Good evening, Deb Hardy, 17 Maria Road, Chair of the Board of Education. It is unfortunate that this budget did not pass, and we sit here and we blame everybody that did vote for what was not passed. How about if we get those voters that did not come out to vote? It is part of their fault. It is not the Board of Education. It is not the Town Council. You as residents have given us a job to do, and we're trying to do it. Unfortunately, there are things that we don't like, but please remember, you need to get out and vote if you want this to pass. We can't do it any other way. We can't pull our hair out of our heads getting people out there, but all of you people, every single one of you, can get your residents out to vote. So please do not blame this all on the town council and the Board of Education, because it is the voters' fault. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline?
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Barta. I'm a resident of 5 Farm Hill Drive, and I'm also a 5th grade teacher at Wheeler School, where we're facing the possible elimination of an additional literacy tutor for the 1920 school year. I could go on and on about how the elimination would impact me as an educator. However, it really comes down to how this will affect the students. Next year, we are slated to have around 25 or 26 students in each 5th grade at Wheeler. Historically, we have had class sizes in the high 20s and will continue to in the coming future, as long as there are only 2 sections of 5th grade in our school. The hope for next year was to have an additional literacy tutor, which would help us specifically in the higher grades reach all students during our literacy blocks. Having 23 students this year with a range of abilities, both academic and behavioral, it's a monumental task for me to meet each student during those blocks for reading or writing. A typical reading block might look like this. 15-minute reading lesson to the whole class introducing a new learning target, followed by 3 15-minute guided reading groups of 6 students. While that's happening, students who are not meeting with me are independently practicing the skill on their own while I'm locked at my table with small groups for 45 minutes. Now, the management of all of this notwithstanding, this leaves me with my full hour of reading used up, 5 students who haven't been seen by a teacher, and 23 kids rushing to get ready for recess and lunch on time. This is an ideal block where everything runs smoothly and there's nothing that interrupts the flow of rotations. If all goes well, I will meet with 18 of my 23 students each day for reading. I can tell you that this is the picture of my typical classroom and my colleagues. Inevitably, 1 or 2 students distract others from their task or have another sort of behavioral interruption that requires more attention from me, taking instructional time away from the students who need it. With the addition of a tutor, I would be able to make sure that each student is getting exactly what they need, whether that be practicing the skill that I introduced that day, Tier 2 interventions, which have to be done in addition to the overall classroom learning target. For example, some students may need vocabulary enhancement or work with other skills that might not have been mastered in the 3rd or 4th grades. Some students need to be challenged and have extension activities available to them because they've already mastered what I've taught for the day. A tutor could help with this too. More students would be working with adults, meaning I could potentially have 6 groups being taken during this time instead of 3. Every student would have a place, every student would be seen, every student would have a more targeted instruction in a smaller setting. This all leads to a more focused, more productive work block, and more students would be achieving. I'm just one teacher giving one scenario of how this tutor could be used and how they are essential to the classroom environment, but there are countless other ways that they could be used as well. I urge you to reconsider the cut to the Board of Ed budget. It is in the best interest of all students that the already slimmed down version be passed the way it was presented last Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Catherine LaBella. The following 2 are Sherry Lebowski and Todd Salo. I don't know if I'm saying cello as if the musical instrument, but I apologize if that's wrong. So Catherine, Sherry, and Todd. Catherine.
Catherine LaBella, 50 Pierce Street. With Dr. Brummett recently announcing her new position in Newington, the Board of Education has been handed an opportunity to review and consolidate administrative positions and overhead. The streamlining of administrative costs would minimize the direct service and sports impacts in the proposal that has been floated. While proposing to cut special education, hearing impaired, and social study teachers, a literacy tutor in sports, has had the strategic effect of upsetting parents and students. In order to ensure opposition to the cuts can be done in a way to minimize service impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Sherry.
Sherry Lebowski, 57 Birch Tree. I am a parent of Wheeler students, and I'm also a public educator outside of Plainville. I just would like to urge the town council to put forward the new reduced budget with as low a reduction you can. I understand the charter says that we need to reduce something. I'm asking that it be the smallest reduction we can make. 200,000 is just way too much in an already reduced budget, especially given the close margin of just 12 voters. I just think that's too close to be making a big $200,000 reduction. I just want to speak to what happens when school districts absorb positions like was already done in the already reduced budget. Those positions do not come back. I've worked in public education for a very long time. When boards of education absorb retirements and people leaving, those positions don't come back. So any cuts that happen on top of that are cuts on top of positions that are not returning. And that is just too much loss of face time with students. And what do schools do to enhance a student's experience when we don't have any face time students? We increase screen time. And I think we all understand what the research is showing about screen time. We just can't replace people with increased screen time. So what do you do with those extra kids that are not being seen in their literacy block? You know, they're reading on Mayan, or they're, you know, and the teachers are doing the best they can to create thoughtful, you know, experiences for their children, but they can't be self-directed. 24 students in 5th grade are not going to all be responsibly self-directing during that time. So the teachers need support, and I just urge you to think about those students and the number of positions we've already lost, and think about reducing that budget as low as you possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Next is Todd. Following Todd is Mike Giuliano and Kelly from Rockwell Avenue.
Todd Salo, 12 Usher Avenue. I'm actually reading for Abigail Egan from 7 Cree Circle. I voted in favor of both the town and Board of Ed budget and was disappointed in my town when the Board of Ed budget failed. I am alarmed at the penny-wise, pound-foolish proposed cuts to the Board of Ed budget that have been brought forth. Eliminating or reducing hours for teachers for students with autism and hearing loss means we will not be able to support as many students with these disabilities. This will lead to more students being outplaced at a staggering cost to the town. Eliminating a much-needed reading tutor for Wheeler will lead to lower test scores, which can affect state and federal funding, as well as school ratings. Middle school sports. Having sports in middle school readies our young athletes for high school sports, where good performance can lead to scholarships and college recruitment. Sports keeps kids out of trouble and physically active. Since my son joined middle school baseball, the PlayStation has been off. Sports are good for kids socially, mentally, and physically. If we had to switch to a pay-to-play system, we would lose some of the kids who need it the most. Good schools drive up house values, and in turn, this keeps tax rates lower over time. This vote failed by an extremely small percentage, and I am confident that it does not reflect the majority. Parents are busy, and I hope this serves a wake-up call that our vote really does matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike?
Up the deck. Mike Giuliano, 26 Norton Place. I'm a member of the Board of Education. First of all, I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity. Thank everyone for showing up and voicing their opinions. Regardless on what side you fall on, this is truly great to see this many people come out and express their feelings about this. And my feeling is that we worked really hard. We're all volunteers, the council and the board, so we have nothing to gain monetarily. This is not a position where we aspire to go on to greater things. This is simply us giving to the town, and we're really proud to be here and do that. That being said, that we had a very transparent process, and we have Democrats, we have Republicans, we fight, we disagree, but at the end we came together and we agreed and we took an oath. We promised that we would support the budget. Each one of us took that promise. And I understand it was a close defeat, but I ask that you consult with Dr. Brummett, see if there's any cuts that we can do, but $200,000 is devastating, and there are going to be unintended consequences. There's no doubt about it. So what you're thinking that, well, we're going to cut the budget, it's going to cost you much more in the future, especially with the sports. I agree. A lot of kids would not be in school if it wasn't for sports, let's face it. My son's the same way. He's a smart kid, but athletics, football, that's it. It keeps them focused, and it, like I said, teaches them discipline. There's not as much I could say. The parents that said were very eloquent, very knowledgeable. And again, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to serve this town. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service, Mike. All right, the next three people on the list are Kelly from Rockwell Avenue, Carrie from Diamond Ave, and Anka, I believe, from Redstone Hill, if you get ready.
Good evening. Good evening, council members and town manager Lee. My name is Kelly Nayra. I'm from 92 Rockwell Avenue. I am the parent of a current 8th grade student at Middle School of Plainville who will be entering 9th grade this fall, a student with a disability on an IEP with a diagnosis of autism. I am also an advocate for other parents in the area of special education, and I've seen firsthand what cuts, budget cuts, and lack of services can do for students. We've been in the district for 11 years. I've worked tirelessly with Dr. Brummett, many of the people in this room, Mr. Garino, Mr. Batchelder. I can tell you that these teachers work tirelessly to provide supports and services. They are already strapped. I can tell you they work 24 hours a day, regardless of what their contract says. And the cut of a teacher specific to students with autism would be devastating for my son, who's 4 years away from graduating high school. Students with autism learn differently from other students. It's documented in the literature. If you take away a position like this, it not only impacts my son as well as many other students in the district with autism, but it also impacts all students with disabilities because you're going to have to pull other special education teachers in who already have overloading caseloads, and there's no way that this should happen in this district. It's simply not acceptable. These students deserve to get as much access as they can to the general ed curriculum so that they can be independent functioning members of the community. And we need to support our students as well as our special education teachers who do an amazing job in this district. It hasn't been an easy journey for my son, and I would hope that his next 4 years will be meaningful so that he can be he's fully included. It's been a long process, and these students deserve to have a teacher available to them who knows how they learn and who can explain to the general education teachers what those students need in order to be successful in the general education community. I just urge the council to adopt the budget that was put forth, not make the reductions to special education. They are so critical to this town. I know that there are a number of parents here who've already spoken to that. It's critical for these students in order to have meaningful access to the curriculum and be able to progress. And we need to support them as well as the teachers. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kelly. Harry? Is there a Carrie here?
Hi, Carrie McCoy, 30 Diamond Avenue, Unit 13. I'm relatively new to town. I've only been here for about 2.5 years, so I was really surprised to hear how low the vote was. And you know, I voted a couple of times and I've noticed that not a lot of people come out. So I did vote, and I just wanted to first say that I think everyone should vote. I don't feel like this is about anyone blaming anyone. I feel like if there can be, I understand there has to be a reduction, but $200,000 does sound a little ridiculous. My daughter's in 2nd grade. She's at Linden, so she's not at one of the schools that would be affected. But when I hear the things that you possibly are talking about cutting, I hear self-esteem. I mentor with a lot of teenagers, and I'm really emotional because a child that I knew just committed suicide 2 weeks ago that I had mentored. He wasn't involved in sports, and he was on the autism spectrum, and he didn't get the services he needed. He didn't live in Plainville, but he lived in a town that cut the budget, cut the budget, cut the budget. And he was really affected by that. And it was his self-esteem that was affected. It affects the other students, because when you have a peer that commits suicide, that's going to affect you deeply. The other thing that I hear is diversity. When you want to cut someone who's teaching the children sign language, all the children don't get the benefit of seeing that other child learn that way, of understanding that other people are different and that other people learn differently. In sports, I hear the same thing, self-esteem and diversity. I grew up in Southington. I look in this room, there's not a ton of brown people, but I played sports when I was younger. And it really just opened me up, because you play other towns, you see a variety of other people. And for me, it was really the most diverse thing that was involved in my life at the time. So like I said, I understand there has to be reductions, but I just wish it could be a lower amount so these things aren't affecting our children as much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is Anka. The next one will be Bethel, and then we have Eric. So if you could please make your way over, that would save some time. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Anka Behrens-Cook, 55 Redstone Hill. This is not my thing, so I'm going to try to get through this. I felt like I needed to say something. We need to keep in mind, I think, that families move to towns that have good school systems. So we need a solid budget that will support opportunities for those students. We've developed a better than average school system, for sure, in Plainville, and we need to keep it that way. My understanding is the 2.7% does not include any extras. It's needed to cover mandatory increases. My understanding is also that an art teacher was leaving. They decided not to replace them, but rather to combine them for bigger art classes in order to get a social studies teacher. But now that social studies teacher would be cut. In another case, 2 tutors were eliminated for a teacher, but now that teacher would be cut. The loss of special education teacher means that there is less support for students that are struggling. We want the ability to catch kids that need the help before they fail. Quickly to sports, I think everybody's already addressed MSP sports are just important to keep the kids healthy and involved. Kids that play sports have something to keep them busy, keep them out of trouble. By making it pay to play, we would severely restrict which kids can play, since not everyone would be able to afford this. Sometimes those kids are the ones that need it the most. In a world where kids are getting sucked into playing video games, we should be supporting our students with the opportunity for healthy fitness, for health, fitness, and wellness. I ask that you reconsider cutting by $200,000. As president of the Topholon PTO, I felt like I had to speak. We always speak for not just one student, but all the students. So it's about the citizens and the entire town of Plainville. Thank you.
Thank you. Bethel. And next is Eric and John. John from Testa Drive. I can't read your last name, John. Okay.
Hi, Bethel Hairston, 4 Maxine Road. Very grateful for the opportunity to speak, not just on behalf of myself, but the entire town. I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with speaking. I'm not very comfortable myself, but I figure I'd be a voice for everybody who was unable to get up here to speak, and ask that you reconsider the budget cuts. I have 2 small children, 2nd and 4th grade, who will be hopefully going all the way through Plainville schools. They are athletes. They are involved in 3 and 4 sports, and it is just very important for them to be involved. It changes lives. It creates a family outside of their family, and it can put them in a direction that they might not have had, even if they aren't the best student and they don't have the services with school. They can have it with sports. And my children are both in, I know the posers aren't here, but my kids are in school with them, same ages. And I know so many kids and families that need the support and the services. And I just ask that you reconsider the cuts for all of it. And again, speaking for everybody, every child in Plainville, and every parent, student, faculty, everybody involved, and just, again, grateful and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Hi, Eric Ridley, 92 Carroll Drive. I don't have anything prepared to talk about, and I didn't plan on talking, but I feel like this is a really important issue. First thing, I didn't even know about the budget, the voting, so if that could get out there to the public better, I think that would be better. That's why there wasn't a big turnout, because we didn't even know about it. Obviously, I would have voted the other way. The other thing, I think these cuts are going to be very devastating. I grew up in this town, went through the whole entire school system, played sports. I've been a homeowner in the town for 12 years. I have 3 kids who are going through the school system and through sports. I agree with a lot of the good points that have been made, that these cuts are going to be devastating, not only now, but in the long run, and not just for people that have kids, but all taxpayers. I ask that you seriously reconsider.
Thank you. That's John from Testa Drive. The next 2 up are Aaron Soley and Jeff Tchaikovsky from Northwest Drive.
Hello, my name is John Alvarado from 3 Testa Drive. I am a parent of an 8th grader who will be attending high school next year. My child does not have special needs, but I felt like I needed to come out and speak because we need to make the school, a daily school for these kids, needs to be a comfortable environment. They shouldn't have to worry about going to school and not being able to express themselves. If we take away these teachers, they're not going to learn, they're not going to move forward, they're going to hold themselves back. I think cutting a special education teacher is an absolutely horrendous idea. In regards to sports, my child plays middle school sports. He's been on the swim and dive team for 3 years. I don't know how many of you have children in diving and swimming, but the team is phenomenal. I can only speak for the diving and swimming team because that's what my child plays. For 3 years, they have finished in the top 7, 5th, and 3rd, and 4th in the state. MSP holds the diving champion for the entire state of Connecticut. This doesn't only affect the students, it affects the coaches. The coaches are phenomenal. They are so passionate about teaching these kids to swim and dive, I can't even put it into words. I am also vice president of Plainville Little League. And my child does not play MSP baseball, but he's been playing baseball ever since he's been 5. As a coach for the last 6 years, I take a ton of joy of watching these kids go through the Little League program and then go to MSP, and they come back and say, hey, coach, I made it. Can't wait to go into high school. These MSP sports are the feeder programs for high school. If you take that away, you're going to ultimately hurt the high school program, but at the very heart of it, these kids won't have anything to do after school. My child cannot wait for the second Wednesday, every other Wednesday for a half a day so he can go with his buddies to the field and practice. He's not the best kid on the team, but he works at it. If it wasn't for sports, he'd be home on his phone, on his PlayStation. That's the last thing we want for these kids. We want to reduce screen time. These kids need sports in this town. The town, soccer won a championship last year. Baseball's competitive every year. Football's getting better. The swimming and diving team are always competitive. The girls swimming was phenomenal this past year. I think cutting sports is such a bad idea. And for it to come down to only 12 votes, it just doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Soley, Jeff Tchaikovsky, and the next one would be Stephanie Andros. Is Aaron here?
Hello, my name is Jeff Tchaikovsky, 69 Northwest Drive.
You didn't look like Aaron, so I'm glad you did that.
Well,
I guess Aaron got called away. I don't know. We'll go back. Okay.
Sorry.
Go right ahead.
My wife was one of the people who sent an email to the town council today.
Okay.
I am a parent of a fourth grader at Toffalon School. He is an ADHD child, so I understand the need for special services, but that's not really why I'm here to talk. Everyone has talked about sports. Sports are important. I coach Little League. I'm also a den leader for Scouts, and these team and group activities for children are paramount importance to them. It helps them build leadership skills. It helps them build skills of cooperation, of teamwork, of following instructions, of discipline, of all of these things. But the one thing that I haven't heard anyone speak about today that concerns me is the cutting of supplies. It's unthinkable that teachers have to spend their own money to allow children to learn, or that they have to beg parents in this town for pencils, for construction paper, for the things that they need. There's just no reason why that should be the case. And to think that this massive cut to our education budget, $200,000, what someone said, almost 20% of the proposed changes to the budget, comes down to 12 votes, to less than 1%, to about 0.1% of the voting populace of this town. Is $200,000 really that important for that few people? Thank you.
Thank you. One more chance. Is Erin Soley here? She signed. I've not seen her come to the microphone. If not, we'll just keep continuing on down the list. Stephanie Andros, Nicole Palmieri, and I'm having a Mark Chase. Sorry, I couldn't read your. I apologize, Mark. Stephanie?
Hi, Stephanie Andros, 12 Ben Court. I didn't really know I was going to have to talk by signing this paper, so give me a second. I have a 4-year-old. She's in our new great preschool program that's only been around for a couple years. She is also in the special education program, and we've only been in it for not even a year yet, but I can tell you that the teachers and all the staff have been wonderful. They have gone above and beyond every single day. I also have a brother-in-law who's a special education teacher in the Plainville High School, and also grew up here and was very involved in Plainville sports. He actually was just inducted into the Hall of Fame this past year, so I know how important that stuff is. I would say one of the big things is our education system is so great. That's why my husband, who grew up in here, and we decided to raise our kids here. The preschool program, like I said, that just got started a couple years ago, I tell people about it and they say it's great. My daughter, who's only 4, she has lots of different kids with different needs in her class, and she sees nothing. She doesn't see race, she doesn't see anything. She sees her friends that go to speech, she goes to OT, she goes to PT, so I think that's a great reason and a great thing. You have kids that are going to be growing up and from the start just not noticing if someone's hearing impaired. They're just going to see that they need different help. They're going to see the diversity as a positive thing. That's just their friends. So I think it's really important for everything. So I'm hoping that they can just maybe make less of a budget cut and not cut in such important areas. And thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole Palmieri, 20 Julie Road. Tonight I'm speaking to you as the Vice Chair of the Board of Education. I was asked by some members of the Town Council, Board of Education, and other members of my party to not speak out against the proposed cuts, but I cannot support something I don't believe in. I feel that a cut of $200,000 is an overreaction to a budget that failed by 12 votes. I understand that due to the results, the Town Council has to cut the budget by some amount due to the town charter, but there is a lot of ground between $0 and $200,000. Anyone who knows me or attended any of the Board of Education budget work sessions know that I go through the budget line by line several times to see where the savings can be applied. I worked many hours on this budget and can tell you that there is no fluff built in, no matter what you may be hearing. So I do not take speaking out against these cuts lightly. When the budget was first presented to the board, it was a 3.4 increase. The budget we brought to the town council was a 3.0% increase. The town council then made additional cuts and sent it to the public for a vote of 2.7%. There are things you may not realize that have been done to reduce the budget, such as Dr. Brummett reduced some of the administration from year-round positions to 10-month positions. Any additional teacher, para, or tutor that is hired is offset by someone who is retiring or leaving the district, so we are never adding educators, we are merely staying at the same number. If we do not hire this social studies teacher, we will be losing a staff member, as this hire was offset by the retirement of another teacher. Also, NEASC has given us a black mark because our social studies classes are too large, so not hiring this teacher could affect our accreditation. I know many of the parents are concerned about the cuts in middle school sports. I truly wish they were not on the chopping block, but the board is left no choice if the council forces us to cut $100,000 to $200,000 from the budget. Another thing to think about is almost $300,000 of the increase is due to rising health insurance costs. Insurance and benefits make up 19.3% of the budget, or $7,467,574. Contractual agreements equate $24,954,491, or 64.6% of our budget. Between those things alone, we have no control over. The increase of the budget is $1.2 million. Therefore, 89.3% of the budget cannot be touched. That leaves 16.1% of the budget to be allocated for the students' education. I have worked very hard to balance the needs of our children and the burden it puts on the taxpayers. I feel that the budget we worked on and presented was fair and balanced one. And by making these cuts, the town council will be forcing us to cut things that directly impact education and the well-being of children. I don't understand how anyone would think we are padding the budget with those numbers. I am incredibly disheartened by the thought that some of the town council do not realize the detrimental effects these cuts will have on our children. I wholeheartedly oppose these massive cuts and hope that certain members of the town council will realize the negative effects of their actions if they proceed how we're being told they want to. I want to thank Dr. Brummett, Mr. LePage, and Mr. Adelstein for all their hard work and make it known that I support them and all the great things they do for our children.
Next up will be Mark Chase, followed by Crystal St. Lawrence and Jean. Jean, I can't read your last name, but you live on Sissio Court. So those are the next three, please. Hi, Mark.
Good evening. Mark Chase, 48 Metacomet Road, Plainville. I have 2 children in the district, and I'm also a teacher at the high school. And I just want to explain, or I'm up here just to, let everybody know that I'm here. Excuse me. Sorry, I didn't have a speech plan tonight, but I didn't realize putting my name on it. But I see each and every day how important the budget is, and I see firsthand, the students in Plainville, the benefits that they have here, as an educator. And I, want everybody to know that making these significant cuts are going to have huge impacts to the students and faculty in the town. So please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Crystal?
Yep. I'm Crystal St. Lawrence. I live on 76 Higgins Avenue. I'm a mother of 2. I have a middle schooler and a high schooler, and I'm also on the Board of Education. And so let's see. I had something written, but I don't think I'm going to go with it. But so I understand we have to make some kind of reduction in our proposed budget, but I feel that a high reduction will cause a significant impact to programs and services in our district next year, and could also negatively impact the value of our homes and property here in Plainville. So we carefully prepared a budget, and it was pretty bare bones, and we looked line by line, and our amazing administrators, last week made some potential cuts if we had to, and we heard all about them. But before the Board of Ed even presented the budget, the budget was already cut, and then we reallocated things. So like the art teacher, we already heard about all of that. So I just feel that we're losing so much more than just these positions. We're losing those other positions that we juggled around. And every year we seem to reallocate. And what concerns me is we keep making these reallocations. When are we going to add back? We're talking about reducing our proposed budget. And I'm not rich, but someday I really feel like we're going to have to increase these budgets to bring back some of these teachers that we have lost before. I don't know. So I just hope that we can make any reductions that we have be very minimal and not impact our district too much.
Thank you, Crystal. I have Jean, I'm sorry I can't read your last name, from Sissio Court, following by Becky Terrell and Catherine Curtis. Jean? I think it's Jean. 7 Sissio, are you here? No? Ah. That's not Jean, but that's not Jean. Okay, we're gonna move along. Becky, please.
Hi, Becky Tyrell, 174 West Main Street. So I've been doing this for 20 years and been on the Board of Education for 18 years, other than Miss Kathy Wells, who didn't want to get up here and be the last Board of Education member. Oh, you are? Okay. She will. So I'm not bringing up the rear. And a lot of things sound really familiar, not recently familiar, but familiar from many years ago. And one of the things I just have to say to you is one of the problems that we have in Plainville, and I'm sure not just Plainville, is called apathy. So people don't come out and vote, and the reason people don't come out and vote is because they're basically happy, because when people aren't happy, they come out like this. So we know why people don't come out and vote. I could not vote. I was in Maryland all last week. So basically I'm saying it was only 11 people. So
you'll be there on the 15th, right, Becky?
What's that? I know which way I would vote, Kathy. I just want us to think of it in that context and understand that this is why it is important for people to pay attention and to vote and to understand that that's the system that we use in Plainville. If you're from a different city, I grew up in Bristol, we didn't vote like this on a budget. So depending on where you're from, when you come here, you have to know that you have to be involved. One of the things that just happened here is, where's Miss Jackie Bartamioli? There's Jackie. So Jackie Bartamioli got up here and she told you that she's a fifth grade teacher at Wheeler, but did you tell them that you were a graduate of Plainville High School? Okay. So when Miss Jackie Bartamioli was a little youngster like this, my children were young like that as well. And the class sizes were a lot smaller. And so in the 18 years I've been on the Board of Education, class sizes went down and they have really come up. And Jackie reminded me of that. We have made a lot of reductions. We have this 3 R's thing, reinvest, what is it?
Renew.
Reinvest, reallocate, whatever. And it sounds good, and it's good because there are certain things that you need to change over time, but it really does come down to reductions. And it's come down to the point where we have no other place to go. There are people who are standing here saying, oh, you're talking about cutting these terrible things because you want to get our attention. Well, no, we're cutting these terrible things because we've cut everything else. And as a group, just like all of you, we are citizen volunteer taxpayers. Not a single one of us wants to pay $1 more than we have to, but we also understand the importance of education and how it impacts the values of our property and the value of our community and what it means to this town. People live here because of this. So I just really want to implore you to make a reduction that is as minimal as possible, and let us do our work when that's done, and it will be difficult work.
Thank you. Last up is Catherine Curtis. Catherine?
Hi, good evening. My name is Catherine Curtis, and I live on 15 Maiden Lane. I will probably echo a lot of what you've heard this evening, but I wrote all this out, so I want to share some of my ideas.
Then you go right ahead.
I will.
That's fine.
I would like to jump off of what Becky said about the apathy. One of the things that just is so disheartening is that we are satisfied that 6% of the eligible voters in this town came out. We have an obligation and a responsibility to act To vote is our right, our responsibility. We need to vote locally. We need to vote at the state level and the national level. And when you don't vote, this is what happens. And I'm angry. I am a parent of 4 children. 2 of my children have gone through the system. They're happily in college. They're doing very well. And I have 2 much younger children. So clearly I have a vested interest. I'm also an educator, although not within our school system, and I have been my entire adult life. Everything is important on these proposed cuts, but I would like to speak to the sports because it just is an important one in my opinion. Middle school children in particular need this opportunity for sports. It's a time of great transition for them. Their bodies are changing, their minds are developing, they're negotiating interpersonal skills and trying to figure out who they are. Sports provide these kids with a positive way to work off energy and tension. They teach them how to work as a team and to learn to persevere. They give them a family, a group of friends to connect with. They keep them fit and they keep them out of trouble. To take away these sports would affect these children, especially those who cannot afford the special teams. It would put our high school teams at serious disadvantage. It gives children, they would deny them a chance to try something new, which I think we want to encourage. Also, to get them out of their phones. Like, we need them having face-to-face. It's such a lost art. You have to negotiate and communicate, and we lose that if they're not having things to do after school. My daughter is in 7th grade and I have a son in pre-K. So I suppose I could say, well, Lucy has a year, so I'll just, she'll do rec swim and she'll be okay. And maybe by the time Henry gets there, everything will be okay. But the fact is, we're a community and we need to be forward thinking. It's not about my kids, it's about all of our kids. So whether or not my kids are in the school system, I'm gonna be advocating for our schools. And I guess my time is up, but thank you.
You have 12 seconds.
I have 12 seconds.
Keep
All
going,
right.
keep going,
Thank you.
Catherine.
Please do not cut this budget. 12 people do not, that is not right. And shame on the people who didn't vote.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, we have gone through the list of the folks that signed up to speak. I will, for the next 10 minutes, offer if anybody else wishes to speak that did not sign, please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Kathleen Wells. I live at 19 East Broad Street in Plainville, and I'm also a member of the Board of Education. I moved to Plainville 26 years ago because it was a nice place to live. I stayed because of the schools. One of the words that has stuck with me through this budget process, and Dr. Brummett will appreciate it, is catastrophic. So the very, very first day of our budget session, she presented her budget, her wish list, where she'd like to see things. And we went down it, and we got down to a line, and she said, anything below this is catastrophic. And I don't know that word, I looked it up today, and one of the definitions is extremely unfortunate or unsuccessful. I kind of stuck with the word unsuccessful. I do not support these significant cuts to the Board of Ed budget at all. And the most important thing that we do with our tax dollars is educate our children so we can spend the money.
Thank you. John.
Good evening, Burke Smith, 140 Thomason Avenue.
Oh, sorry, I was pointing at somebody else, but certainly, what is your name?
Burke Smith, William
Herb
Burke
Smith.
Smith, 140 Thomason Avenue.
Thank you.
I presently at this time the president of the Plainville Blue Dolphins Parent Association. I just want to thank you for your time. I'll make it short and simple. I know you have a very tough decision tonight regarding MSP sports, but I want to give you a few fun facts about the swim team. Did you know for over the last 10 years, they've been down to the state finals in middle school? 10 years in a row. They're up against East Lyme, 60, 65 kids. We have 18, 22 kids. We've always been in the top 10. The last 3 years, we've been 7th, 3rd, was it John, right? 7th, 5th, and 3rd, correct? And this year we also have the top diver for middle school. Did you also know that Coach Chris at the high school, this has been his most successful season, because with the feeder program that we start with the Plainville Blue Dolphins recreation team to get them ready for the middle school, to get them ready for the high school. And years ago when this happened, I think, what was it, 10 years in a row, Plainville High School were the conference and also state champions. So, you know, that's something to think about with these kids in the sports, the determination, because when you see a kid 6th, 7th, and 8th grade strutting their stuff down the hallway because they just broke a record, I think it's pretty good. And that's another thing that I wanted to bring up. Over the last 3 years, if you go down to the Plainville High School, down to the pool, if you look up at the MSP record board, there's only one left. The last 3 years, every single record, not broken, but these kids have shattered the records. They're doing phenomenal. The coaches are great. School system's great. This is something I really, really need you guys to think over. I want to see the championships come back to Plainville. We need the feeder program. We need everything. And I was about to say I have to thank the Board of Education. My daughter Julia, 2nd grade, what happened today has blown me away. She has dyslexia. They got on it. She got the education. She's in 9th grade now. She got a varsity letter in swimming. Wow. She missed a state going to states by 1/100th of a second. She's also on the varsity golf team. And this is what has me choked up, because if it wasn't for the Board of Education, all you teachers here, she wouldn't be able to, you ready? Be on the PGA Junior Tour starting in June. We need these teachers. We need the special education. Okay? We need, you guys, seriously, you guys think about the budget. I know it's money. Think about the futures for the kids, because we didn't have the special education teachers. My daughter wouldn't be at Amity High School right now, being the 2nd seed on the golf team as a freshman.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Wow.
John Kislick, 65 Forestville Avenue. I'm in my usual minority behind the 8 ball. I'm in favor of cuts.
Sorry, there's a bug in here.
I'm in favor of...
It's after me. Go ahead, John.
It's not me. I'm in favor of you making cuts to this Board of Education budget. I also tried to get people to come out and vote. I put a letter in the paper that people would actually get paid to come out and vote, and this is one of them. Because it went down, the budget's going to be cut. You will save money on your taxes. I tried everything I could to get people out. They don't want to come out, it's their problem. I think the town budget would have failed too if we had more people out. You know, this council isn't picking what's being cut. That's the Board of Ed. That's up to them. And they are purposely picking these issues and these items for everybody to feel bad and sad for them and all this. They do not have to take those cuts for those items. I looked up a Freedom of Information report I did 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there were 16 tutors, and their total yearly salary was $362,973. They had 7 psychologists for $482,000, $82,300. We had 74 paraprofessionals. I don't know how many we have now, but I know tutors, you're up to 45. Why do we need psychologists in the system? The only way I can see is one psychologist maybe for the teachers, and that's about it. You know, this is not sustainable. You can't keep increasing this budget $1 million a year. It's just ridiculous. And Catherine hit the nail on the head with consolidating. We're going to have consolidation across the state. The handwriting's on the wall. It's already affected Plainville. on the Board of Education side and our town side. We're merging with other towns for different services, and the board has to cut, and they have to think of the taxpayers too. Are we getting our money's worth? And I don't think we're getting our money's worth. They say they go line by line. I looked at some of that budget, and $200,000 would not be any problem at all for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Semino, 138 White Oak Avenue. First, I'd just like to thank the Board of Education for all the work that they're doing. I don't think you guys get enough credit for what you do. So I'd just like to start off with saying that I'm a graduate of Plainville High School, and I can confidently say that I received a world-class education. This education has put me a step above others who have paid out of pocket to go to private schools at my own institution. I go to Springfield College. So this tool of education has helped me aspire to be an activist and see myself in the seats that you are all in today. So unfortunately, the same cannot be said for our friends in New Britain, just 5 minutes down the road. New Britain ranks second to last in quality of public school in the state, and 1 out of 4 students drops out before graduating high school. While this is the mere extreme, these proposed budget cuts set us on the path to this. Think about this. What is the most important thing to a new family moving into a suburb like Plainville, Rocky Hill, or Farmington? Education. Education is the lifeline of a community. New families are more likely to move to school districts that offer after-school programs, such as middle school sports, that are the feeder programs that prepare students to play in high school. Like myself, I played for middle school baseball. If the education budget is cut, property values can also go down. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, every dollar spent on education for a town similar to our size equals $10 on added property value. I personally know people who have moved to Farmington after originally being from Plainville just because of the quality of education. This is a never-ending cycle that you can all end today. Cuts to the budget mean the kids lose as well as the property owners. After a long history of continuous cuts and flatlining to the education budget in New Britain, the representative Rick Loeb stated at the last New Britain Democratic Town Committee meeting that the only option moving forward is for them as a district to regionalize. I think I speak for a majority of people in this town when I say that I do not want to regionalize with towns like Plymouth anytime soon. You would be doing an immense disservice to your constituents if you were to cut the already very conservative budget. My last point is that only 756 votes were cast. This is only 7% of the eligible voters. Something we can all agree on, regardless of if we are Republican or Democrat, is that this number is way too low. This number means that there's a significant amount of people who do not even know that this meeting is even happening. This number means that our town government lacks a transparency and connection to the actual people of Plainville, and that may not be your fault with the advertising, but we need more outreach to the voters of Plainville. What I'm asking you is to propose the very same budget. I can single-handedly get those 12 people, who may be 13 of my peers who are coming back from school this week, to vote for this budget. Do it for the kids, do it for the property owners, or somebody else will. Thank you all.
We have a few more minutes. Probably I can take 2 more people.
Hi,
Your name?
Rachel Merritt, 53 Burnham Street. I'm not going to beat a dead horse with what everybody else has said, but I came tonight, and I think one of the main things I wanted to just talk about was I appreciate the opportunity as being a member of this community to have a say in the budget. I think what was frustrating for me, and I think somebody else mentioned, I was away on business, so I had no way to have a say in the budget. I would like the council and the town to have a conversation about absentee ballots when it comes to budget voting, another way for someone who is away on business to have a say. I have a child in the Wheeler schools, fantastic schools. I'm all nervous because I think so highly of the education system, especially the elementary schools in Plainville. And it comes from the head down, Kitching, Brummett, the wonderful people, this special education, just the regular education, they all do such a fantastic job, and I know that they're strapped. And I personally, as a taxpayer, I don't mind paying a little bit more so that our kids can get what they need. And the only reason I wanted to come up is just to say it would be nice to have another way to vote if someone's out of town on business and doesn't have the opportunity to.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sir?
Tate and Mushorn, 55 Locust Street. I live right next to the high school, so I can appreciate the town sports very much. I'd also like to say, I was coming up, one of my points was, unfortunately, well, not unfortunate for me, but I was away on vacation with my wife, and we weren't able to vote, so there's actually 2 more votes for the budget that I wouldn't have been cut. So that's a total of what? That's 4 people right now. So we're already knocking down that number. Being a Southington transplant, I grew up in Southington, but I had family in Plainville, always in both towns. I can tell you the one thing that sorry, I get a little nervous when I speak, but
you're doing fine.
The one thing that I can, people always say, hey, how come you don't live in Southington? Come back to Southington. I have a sports history. They're like, come on, you got to bring your kids to Southington. They got to be part of the sports. And I'm like, you don't understand. Plainville, the school systems in Plainville are top notch, way better than our surrounding towns. I've always been impressed by the town council in this town, Board of Education, everybody involved. Everybody seemed to be under the same slow and steady. Everything we know, you're a fool if you don't think you have to pay more in taxes. Welcome to living in America. Every year, everything goes up. You have to pay a little bit. If you don't pay a little bit, you're going to start paying a lot. And now we're starting to pay a lot. But Plainville always some way would increase a little bit, little by little, just always have enough there to pay for stuff. I tell everybody, this town, I don't mind paying more in taxes because everything I pay for, I get. Garbage, clean streets, good town. But if you look around, this town is turned into a ghost town. There's not a lot of stuff going on. The rails to trails would be a good thing if it could come through, but we need things. If we start losing education in this town, what are we going to be able to have? What's going to bring people into Plainville in 10 years when my taxes are going up even more because now people don't want to come here because of our education system? They said in the paper it's going to be about, $120 a year and my taxes are going to go up? I have no problem with that. If I got to pay $50 more to take care of people who don't want to pay the $120, bring it on. If it means my kids' education and keeping this town growing and my property value growing and living in Plainville, I'm all for it. I don't mind paying taxes. I wish I would have had an opportunity to vote. I would agree with the other people who spoke about how voting in this town is horrible. There's no reason why we shouldn't have at least 1,000 people voting, but we maybe should do something other than the small sign in front of the high school to get people to vote. I don't know. But if maybe absentee ballots to get more people to vote, and I just think we should, if you got to cut $5, cut $5. That's it, right? The town charter says you got to cut $5. Everybody agree? And we're done. Good vote.
I'll take 2 more speakers.
Okay, I am not known for speaking at these meetings, so bear with me. I came here 27.
May I have your name and address?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Paula Saunders, 155 Stillwell Drive. I moved here 27 years ago because this is where my husband-to-be was settled. And my goal was to go back to my hometown because no school system was going to give my kids the system I had where I grew up. I didn't know anything outside of where I lived. Fast forward, I have 2 kids that went through the system. One was a typical boy into sports, not really any problems. The teachers were great. 3 years later, I was given the luxury and blessing of being a parent to a child who needed special needs. She was a special need child. She went through birth to 3. We had our first PPT with Plainville's special ed with Superintendent Brummett, and her services never stopped. She needed what she needed to get through. And there were times, even with all the support, she almost didn't make it. And we had a team here, and unfortunately my marriage didn't work out, But when I went through my divorce, my son was in 5th grade, my daughter was in kindergarten, and I made a promise to them that I wasn't going back home, that Plainville had become my home. There was no town other than where we were that could give them everything they needed. And I'm here as another role, in another role. I also worked for special ed pre-K as a para. And I see and saw firsthand what goes in every single day to these kids. And I need to thank you, Mr. Kislik, because you asked a question why we need so many psychologists in a school system. When a 4-year-old's younger sibling is going in for brain surgery and not knowing what's going to happen, knowing that those school psychologists were there to get him through that day and every other trauma that came along the way in my daughter's years in the system, that's just a small portion of why they are needed. I understand the charter, you have to make cuts. Please hear what everyone said today. That's all I can ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more.
Hi, my name's Rebecca Martinez, 8 Irving Street, and most of what I had to say has been said a few times. So I'm going to go right down to the end here, to my last point that I didn't hear while I was here. As far as what we pay per pupil, Plainville ranks 129th. 128 towns invest more per student than we do. Plainville is known for sports championships and getting all sorts of awards and accolades, and we shouldn't be settling for 129th place. I'm asking the town council to really consider lowering this as little as possible and to please listen to the parents that have came out tonight. One of the things Plainville is known for and is great at is coming together as a community, and it would be great if we can come together on this, not only to support the parents and the education for our children, but also to send a message that we support our teachers and we understand that we need them and how valuable they are. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, first I'd like to thank everybody that came here this evening and came to the podium. I know that's not an easy thing to do if you don't do it all the time, and it's not easy to do if you do it all the time. We had a very large turnout. Clearly, the message can get out when it needs to get out, right? So I would again suggest to everybody, keep May 15th on your calendar. 14th. Thank you. Okay, the 14th of May. And everybody knows where our firehouse is. The vote takes place from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. And any change that the council makes to put this budget back out again will be certainly communicated as soon as it's taken care of. So once again, we're going to be talking about this later on. We have some more business to take care of during the rest of our meeting, but I appreciate you coming out, and you're certainly welcome to stay and listen to the rest of what we have to do tonight. But my sincere thanks for your kind attention in coming this evening. We are also going to, I would like to take, have a motion for a recess for a few minutes. 5 minutes, thank you. Everybody in favor? Great.
Aye.
Okay, we'll reconvene the meeting and carry on with the rest of our agenda. Everybody, the next item of business is to approve the minutes of our previous meeting. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes of April 8th, 2019 special meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Announcements and reports. Does anybody have any announcements or reports to share with us tonight? Okay. Hearing none, we'll carry on. We have some appointments this evening, so we have one that I know of. So may I have a motion to appoint?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to appoint Chris Santarelli, 222 West Main Street, as a regular firefighter to the Plainville Fire Department.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Do we have any other appointments or resignations this evening that are not on the agenda? Okay, thank you very much. Report of the Town Attorney, Attorney Mastriani, do you have anything for us tonight? Okay, thank you. All right, on to the report of the Town Manager, Mr. Lee.
I do have several items to discuss this evening
Thank
with
you.
the Town Council. First one is the land donation JNS Development. JNS Development recently received approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 55-lot subdivision located on Bradley Street near the intersection of Camp Street. As part of the approval, the Planning and Zoning Commission is recommending the acceptance of 19.55 acres of land for open space purposes. This parcel shares a boundary with the middle school property. Additionally, the parcel will lend itself for for passive recreation, as well as potential for active recreation if the need arises. There is also a potential for additional open space to be created when the Tyler Farms property on Unionville Avenue is developed as well, and that may be many years from now, but I anticipate that property will most likely get developed at some point in time. There is an item under new business regarding the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation to accept the 19.55 acres parcel from JNS Development. Next item I have is the Memorandum of Understanding with American Excavating and Septic. The Economic Development Agency recently voted to recommend a 3-year tax abatement of 30% a year for the construction of an industrial building located on Lewis Street. American Excavating and Septic is proposing to construct a 7,500 square foot facility, and I think we made some copies of an artist rendering of what that facility would look like. The estimated cost to construct the building is $700,000. There is an item under new business regarding this recommendation by the EDA to grant American Excavating and Septic a 30% tax abatement for 3 years. Next item I have is the Illicit Discharge and Stormwater Connection Ordinance. John Bossi, Technical Services Director, is here this evening to discuss the requirements concerning a proposed illicit discharge and stormwater connection ordinance. The proposed ordinance has been reviewed by the Town Attorney. No action on the proposed ordinance is being requested as part of this evening's meeting. It's just for information purposes. If the council wants to move forward with the ordinance, the next step would be to call a public hearing. We're not asking you to necessarily do that this evening, since you're hearing about this pretty much for the first time. So with your permission, I'd like to ask John to step forward and give a brief presentation. You do have a copy of the proposed ordinance in your meeting package information.
Good
Hi,
evening.
John.
Good evening. This particular ordinance, I've worked with the town attorney for probably 18 months to draft. It's in conjunction with a stormwater permit the town has to secure from the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Some of you may be familiar with the term MS4. Basically, it's a permit that requires the municipalities, urbanized areas to monitor stormwater with the purpose of preventing the contact of contaminants with stormwater. I prepared a fact sheet for you that kind of summarizes the issues at hand. I don't know if you had an opportunity to review that or to actually read through the ordinance. The ordinance is kind of it's very technical in a sense. It's basically describes what an illicit discharge is, then it describes a process to monitor, surveil, monitor the stormwater that's coming from there, and gives us the authority to do enforcement if the stormwater is contaminated. An illicit discharge is basically any discharge that is comes in contact with materials that can contaminate the environment. And storm drainage is basically any runoff from any precipitation that runs off the earth. Why this ordinance is required is because EPA and DEP, through the Clean Water Act, requires the town to have the authority to do certain tasks. So this particular ordinance permits the town to have the authority to control connections to our drainage system, whether they're direct or indirect, and allows us the authority to force somebody to disconnect or discontinue draining into our system if they are causing damage to the environment. Ultimately, this particular ordinance is generally speaking consistent with a model that EPA has drafted for use for all communities that fall in this urbanized category in the United States. There are some minor modifications in regards to procedures, but in general conformance with that particular model ordinance. The next step would be to review it and to comment on whether you think some of the aspects of the ordinance are pertinent or not pertinent, and then go through the process of conducting a public hearing to incorporate this into town ordinances.
Okay. So there are more steps to be taken in this regard. We would have to create an ordinance and then have public hearings and things of that nature. And we're required to have this ordinance at this point that we don't have now.
Correct.
Okay.
I would point out that this requirement to meet the what they call the MS4 requirements, it does take a significant amount of staff time. We're not looking to increase staff. We're looking to try to absorb these duties within our, current, staff. And John Bossi and Mike Perry have spent a considerable amount of time mapping and locating and doing some testing, I believe, of outfalls already. And we once this ordinance is in place, we will have a responsibility to enforce the ordinance, so which will take time and effort as well. So it's unfortunate. It's a mandate, but it's a mandate that we're required to follow. And at some point in time, if we don't have something in place, they'll come after us.
Mm-hmm. Is there any specific time frame within which we have to get this done, or is there a deadline by which it has to be taken care of?
Not specifically, only because we're behind as it is. This particular ordinance, we do have some controls currently in place. I mean, we have a permit system for connections, and we have other means currently to disconnect people. It's just that between DEEP and EPA, they want specific language to accommodate our authority. We did get a review 2 years ago in an annual report that stated that we needed to move on an ordinance. They acknowledged the fact that we already had a process in place, but they said that it met the spirit of the regulation, but it didn't meet the letter of the regulation. That was one of the comments that we had based on the 2000. Every year I need to send an annual report in our activities and what we've done in regards to this permit, and that we actually had a review most of the time. We get no reaction back from them. In this particular case, in that 2017, they actually gave us comments on what we were deficient on and what was some of the points that we were doing well and that kind of stuff. So,
and they have less staff at DEEP than in the past. Their follow up is a little bit slower, but at some point in time they're going to get to us. So, and we feel as long as we're moving forward that we're in good stead, and this introduction of the ordinance and moving forward with potential adoption, we feel is significant steps forward.
Okay.
and some of the work that's been done by staff in between as well.
Anybody have any questions for John? And it's going to be coming. This will be coming before us.
Yeah, we'll ask
down
you
the
to.
road and
We'll ask for you to set a
work will be
public
done.
hearing, perhaps at your next meeting, which will be for the following meeting after that.
Okay.
So we'll try to keep it moving.
Okay.
If there's any feedback you have after reviewing it, please let us know.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item I have is the Local Complete Count Committee, which relates to the 2020 census. The 2020 census will begin in the next several months. The Census Bureau is recommending that municipalities form what they call complete count committees to ensure that everyone is counted as part of the census. Each town is divided into census tracts. Plainville has 4 census tracts. The Census Bureau has identified one of these census tracts with what is known as what they call a low response score greater than 20%. The Census Bureau believes that there is a need in Plainville and that this particular census tract would benefit from a coordinated effort to raise awareness. Additional information regarding the 2020 census was included in the package for this evening's meeting. A representative from the Census Bureau has volunteered to attend a future town council meeting to discuss the need to consider forming a complete census committee. This is really just kind of an introduction to this particular process, and I would like to schedule a representative from the census, the 2020 census, to come to the council and have some further discussion about this issue, unless you have objection to that.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item I have, and I consider this all items, issues are important, but this one is, at least in my opinion, significantly important, and that is called the Valley Water Study Public Information Session, which is also scheduled for May 14th, 2019. A public information session to discuss the Valley Water Hardness Study will be held next Tuesday evening, May 14th, beginning at 7 p.m. in the middle school auditorium. The study was conducted to determine what could be done on a system-wide basis to soften the water delivered by Valley Water. Residents will have the opportunity to ask questions and make comments regarding the water quality as well. Representatives from the State Department of Health, the Public Utilities Regulatory Agency, and the Plainville-Southington Health District will be in attendance to respond to comments and questions as well. Residents are encouraged to attend this public information session. A complete copy of the water hardness study can be found on the Valley Water webpage at www.valleywatersystems.com, and there is also a link from the Town of Plainville webpage. This study is somewhat detailed. This will be an opportunity for residents to speak directly to the state people who are in charge of overseeing Valley Water and the quality of water, and it will also be the opportunity for residents to learn more about the water system and what it would take to soften the water, including potential cost implications. So if people have if people are unhappy with the quality of water that's being provided by Valley Water, although it does meet state drinking water standards, this is an opportunity for you to for people to participate in the process and perhaps make a difference and encourage some change. So it's next Tuesday evening at the middle school, 7 p.m. We will post some things on our webpage, get a hopefully a press release out as well. It'll be in the papers, and do some reach out on social media as well. Next item I have is the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. GFOA stands for the Government Finance Officers Association, which is a major professional organization servicing the needs of more than 19,000 appointed and elected local, state, and provincial level government officials and other financial practitioners. GFOA provides quality publications, training programs, services, and products designed to enhance the skills and performance for those responsible for government finance and management. Each year, GFOA presents a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award to those communities that meet the highest principles of government budgeting. In order to receive the budget award, the entity has to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentations. These guidelines are designed to assess how well the town's budget served as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. I'm very pleased to announce that Scott Colby, assistant to the town manager, has been recently recognized for the primary person responsible for having the town of Plainville receiving the GFOA's Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. Scott Colby has spent considerable time in making sure that Plainville's budget document meets the highest standards. His efforts assured that our community met the highest form of recognition in governmental budgeting and represents a significant achievement for Plainville and its citizens. There's a certificate that goes along with that, which we will present to Scott as well. But in the interest of time, we'll skip that for the moment.
Well, that's really not fair.
There is a lot of time and effort that when we present, when Scott puts it together, we send it off to the GFOA. They have 3 people who go through it, rank, score it, make sure it meets their criteria, and then gives us feedback as to, where we were proficient, where we exceeded, and where we, perhaps could do better. And this is the second year in a row that Scott's been the primary person for putting this together. Plainville does have a long history of achieving the budgetary presentation, the Distinguished Budgetary Presentation Award. But it's good that we have some people that are stepping up and taking over as well to continue with the Plainville's tradition as well. So appreciate it. And now,
great job, Scott. Awesome.
And now the next item I have is the Wheeler School Project update. And Scott Colby, who you just heard about, has served as the staff person for the Capital Projects Building Committee. He attends all of their meetings and attends the contractor meetings as well. He coordinates efforts between the building committee, architects, the construction manager, and the town manager's office to help keep the project moving forward. And as such, he will now give an update on the Wheeler School project. He's got some slides to show. Take a few minutes, and this is a significant project for the town of Plainville, and this was an opportunity for we got to take this evening's to just a little bit of time in this evening's meeting. If people will try to pay attention to update us on the project.
Thank you. So first I'm going to provide a brief update as to how we got where we are today. And as you recall, there was a school project referendum that took place on June 6th back in 2017. And the referendum amount for the Wheeler renovation project was approved at $23,515,000. And at the time, the project was expected to be completed in March of 2020, which is still on track for the same date. So looking at the project's expense summary, looking at the construction budget at the top, the committed contracts are coming in at $17.5 million. Now these are the contracts that the construction manager has for all 14 trades of the project. The construction manager also has a GMP allowance for the variety of items that may occur with those trade packages. And that comes in at $150,000. And then the approved change orders to date are coming in at $268,000. And the estimated change orders that they could potentially see, they're giving a conservative number at about $560,000. So when you look at the projected construction costs, that alone is $18.5 million. Now, that doesn't include some of the owner costs as well as the remaining contingencies. So the owner costs are coming in at about $2.4 million. Now, this includes the architectural KVA contracts that we have, along with environmental consultants, commissioning agent services, moving expenses, technology fees, and furniture. And when you look at the contingencies onto the right-hand side, you'll see that the owner contingencies sit at remaining funds of $210,000, and the construction manager has contingencies at $724,000, leaving the remaining funds available for both contingencies at $934,000. With those three numbers added up with the projected owner costs, the projected construction costs, and the contingency fees, that brings the projected total project cost to $21.9 million. And as you recall, the project referendum budget was $23.1 million, and the approved state budget for the project was $22.8 million. So as of right now, we are coming in under budget for this project. The project, as I said, is scheduled to be completed for March of 2020. Phase 2, 2A, and 2B will be completed in August of this year, and then they'll move on to Phase 3 come August, and then wrap that up in March of 2020. So just to give a brief idea as to what's going on in the project, everything that you see in green is Phase 1A that was already turned over to the schools. Those are the renovated classrooms. And everything that you see in the dark blue color, that is Phase 2, that's underway right now, which includes the new connecting corridor. They're also doing some of the work in the courtyards. And what's going to be taking place this summer will be everything that you see in the light blue, the 2A, the pink, and the purple. That'll be the gym, the kitchens. The kitchen will get turned over to the construction manager come June 1st. They'll have temporary serving lines in the cafeteria to allow for lunch to still be served to the students. It just allows for the construction team to get access to start the work that they have with the few months that they have before school's back in session for the fall. Site utilities are being installed as we speak, and work in the courtyard is underway. Drainage, seat walls, curbing, and decorative concrete are being coordinated for this week. The steel framing and masonry installation continues for the connecting corridor. In Phase 1, demolition of the second boiler has been completed. All concrete pads have been poured, and the new boiler has been loaded into the room. And in Phase 2, interior framing is complete. Drywall installation is at 90% complete. Interior masonry is at about 90% complete. HVAC installation is about 95% complete. Electrical work and plumbing are about 95% complete. And the exterior window installation is ongoing, and the framing for the main entrance is underway. And moving on into the summer, once all the kids are out of school, they're going to start the site work. As you can see, everything in green, that's the finished concrete that is already there in place. But they're going to start to mill and pave the parking lots and start to take work on the fields and the playscape areas surrounding the school. And that will all be turned over back to the school by the end of August, with the exception of the fields. The grass, they're asking to be kept off until February of 2020 to allow the grass to grow. And the courtyard will be pretty much complete by that point as well. And just to give a architect's rendering of what the courtyard will look like, it will have 2 learning areas and a central area with some seats. The 2 little small learning areas that you see on either side of the courtyard will have seated benches in that area that are part of the retaining walls. And there'll be some plants and other variety of items that the school will place in there. And this is just some of the work that's taking place now. As you can see, the connecting corridor is underway. There's still a lot of work that has to be done there, but they are starting to do the concrete and get the foundations in for the connecting corridor and that courtyard. This is just some of the framing in the office area for the new administration portion of the school. As you can see, this is what one of the new bathrooms looks like with the fixtures in place. And here is one renovated classroom, front and back, that you can see with some of the new equipment, the new cabinetry, the lights, the painting, the rugs. And the last picture I have is the renovated hallway in Phase 1 of the school. And that's all I have to report.
That's a great update. Thank you for doing that and bringing some photos and drawings. That makes it nice to see where we are in terms of the progress of that project. And good work. Thank you, Scott.
I know the town council, some of the town council members took a tour of that school several months ago and was able to see some of this work, and it continues to progress. The next item we have is happenings, and Scott will handle that as well this evening. So.
The first report I have is for the Senior Center on Wednesday, May 8th and Thursday, May 9th. They will be having the annual 4 o'clock sale. The Senior Center is sponsoring the sale of Michaela's Garden 4 o'clock plants for this week. The sale is from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Plainville Senior Center this Wednesday and Thursday. Plants are $5 each, and all proceeds benefit the Pettit Family Foundation and the Plainville Public Library. Plants will also be available for sale at Nazo's this Thursday and Friday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturday from 10 a.m. until sold out. Moving on to the Historic Center, on Tuesday, May 21st at 7 p.m., they'll be holding a program on Tyler Farms. On Tuesday, May 21st at 7 p.m., the Plainville Historical Society will host a program on the Tyler family farm, which was located on Unionville Avenue. The presenter will be David Tyler, who will share a story of his family and the many years of farming in Plainville. This program is the fifth in a series focusing and celebrating the history of Plainville during the 150th year as a town. All are invited to the Historic Center at 29 Pierce Street for this event. And the Plainville Youth Services, the Coalition for Positive Youth Development, has once again joined cities and towns around the country by sponsoring a campaign to prevent underage drinking. This effort highlights the fact that it is illegal to allow consumption of alcohol by anyone under the age of 21, even in private homes. During the upcoming prom, graduation, and summer party season, the Coalition will be displaying lawn signs and other materials around town. The Coalition is looking for people to display the lawn signs in support of underage drinking campaigns between May 15th and July 15th. If you're interested in supporting this campaign by displaying a lawn sign, please contact Roberta Brown at 860-793-0221, extension 261. And the last thing I have to report is the Plainville 150th celebration. They do have a celebration set for Saturday, July 20th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This will be a walking tour and a bus tour of the historic sites. This will include maps and buses that will be available at the Municipal Center. There will be guides on the buses that will allow brief descriptions of each of the historic sites that they have selected. And on Sunday, July 21st, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m., there will be a family picnic at Norton Park. Please bring your chairs and blankets. There will be live music, food trucks, games, and historic displays available. The 150th committee will also be offering a custom-designed 1 troy ounce fine silver heirloom quality commemorative coin to celebrate the Plainville sesquicentennial anniversary. One side of the coin will have the Celebrate Plainville, Connecticut 1869 to 2019, and the other side will have the Liberty Torch, along with the silver weight and content. There will be limited production by the Silvertown Mint. Individuals can purchase these at a price of $35 each. For more information on this event, or if you're interested in volunteering or purchasing a commemorative coin, please visit the Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Plainville150th or send an email to plainville150th@gmail.com. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Robert or Scott with their reports tonight? Congratulations again on that award. Well deserved. Thank you for doing all that you do for the town. Okay. If there are no other questions, we're going to be moving on to our public comment section of our meeting during this time. We invite the public to come to this podium. Please state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes to speak to the council. Does anybody wish to speak to the council? John.
John Kislick, 65 Forestville Avenue. Might as well start it off. About the budget vote, I think there were plenty of signs and notices in the paper. I mean, Marilyn asked about it last year, and I think the town did a really good job. Somebody would have to be an ostrich with their head in the sand if they didn't know we had a vote. I mean, it was all over the papers. The signs were at the high school and everywhere you can think of. But I got a comment about the people who showed up tonight. You never see these people here at a meeting like this to discuss other town issues. They don't care. They're self-serving. So as far as I'm concerned, all those people self-serving, I dismiss all their comments. To me, it's worthless. It's stuff to benefit themselves. It's not to benefit the town. But that's my opinion. The other thing I have is at the last budget meeting that we had, I talked about when I had a budget and I wanted to take $600,000 out of undesignated fund balance. I agree with you, Kathy. We can't keep doing that.
No.
But there's a bad thing about having that $8 million surplus. You're going to have budget contracts coming up, and you're going to get them negotiators, and they're going to see Plainville has $8 million, and we have a greedy group in town that's going to be coming up pretty soon, and they're going to say, whoa, Plainville's got $8 million. You got to give it to some of that to them greedy people. So at that point, it's bad. But the other point I was thinking about later, you know, if we spent the $600,000, which the budget passed, so I think you lucked out, we're going to have a final payment on Wheeler School. And the council historically has been taking that final payment and putting it into undesignated fund balance. If you listen to the girl who does our financial report, that would have brought it back up because it's probably going to be around $1 million. So we got to watch that undesignated fund balance because it can hurt us when it comes to budget time. That's my opinion. So keep your eye on it. If you got to spend it somewhere else, spend it somewhere else. And the last thing I have, Scott already did about the coin. You can also contact me on the coin. And if you don't like me and my politics, you can contact Scott or Shirley also. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the town council? Anybody else? Mr. Edmond?
Edmund, Joel Edmund, 63 Hollyberry Lane. No rail, no trail, no thank you. While attending a recent fireside chat in the Plainville Public Library, I was told by a powerful town employee in front of 9 other attendees that I lose credibility when I address the public podium and talk about the same old thing, presumably the rails, the trails, crossroads through the heart of Plainville, which of course I'm adamantly opposed to for obvious reasons, which I continue to try to caution what a few people wish for. I object to this radical form of intimidation to express my free right to speak, as well as the 3-minute rule. I am just wondering, do any of you have any questions as to anything that I have expressed in the past, or disagree with anything that I have said? Joanne and I were recently down at Long Wharf, New Haven, at the New Haven Harbor, where the rails to trails ends. If the questionable trail through Plainville represents anything that looks like the New Haven Trail, people who maybe now are for it will be disappointed, if not feeling hoodwinked. On a bright, warm, sunny day, nobody was on it. It gobbled up about 20% of the existing roadway with painted markings, arrows, and white flimsy sticks that delineate the border from a good amount of traffic flow. I listened to a major proponent say the trail will be nice. I think nice and itty, beginning with SH, would be more apropos. Please don't let this happen in Plainville. Tolls on major highways would be revenue productive. This trail proposal is completely opposite, forever, like the circus that never leaves town. I refuse to be silenced or intimidated. I have been quiet way too long, observing our town of Plainville change into something less than desirable. It is apparent to me that my opinions are of no value up here at the podium, when in fact there is a groundswell of opposition outside these chambers. Many townspeople who are aware of the negatively impacting consequences know that it will be obviously detrimental to our neighborhoods, roads, parking and accessibility, the environment, and also Norton Park. Consider this. A lineal park through Norton Park? How stupid is that? Is my time up?
It is.
Okay.
Thanks for asking.
All right. Well, I have a lot more to say.
Oh, I know. Well, your time has expired, so. There's always the next time,
Joanne,
Mr. Edmund. Always
would
the next
anybody
time.
like to finish this for me?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next time.
Next time.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
You're missing out.
Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Anybody? Yes, sir.
Tom Fody, 15 Bradley Street. You know, for the most part tonight, things were very civil and pleasant. I was a little disturbed by the opening comments to this portion of the night where it was suggested that we should just disregard people who came out. Their opinions don't really matter. They only come out to talk about the budget. They're not here all the time. And I'm pretty sure the budget is a major element of what we all need to do for this town. So, so having said that, I apologize. I won't look at you again if I can avoid it. So, you know, it's disturbing to think that all these taxpayers came out to speak, and someone would want to dismiss them so offhandedly. I appreciate the fact that nobody up there seemed to put much credence in that, and I do recognize that, and I want to thank you for that. And I just didn't want that to be the last thought on the school board budget. So thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Joanne?
Joanne Edmond, 166 West Main Street. Oh, for goodness sakes. That I was going to say that where did the mad exodus go? I mean, they went, and they were here just for one thing, for what they want. Well, granted, they have every right to speak, but so do we. And we speak for the taxpayer. If they want so much, why don't they dig a little further in their pockets and cough up more? But we're trying to be reasonable to all the taxpayers. I'm sure parents have a lot of problems trying to keep up with everything. And it was very, very clever of the Board of Ed and the powers to be to come up with 3 very clever subjects, very sore subjects. So, I mean, this was kind of mentioned before. But naturally, they all came out en masse. So, you know, it's just, and you never see these people at any other thing going on. They just don't come to the town council meetings. It's like they don't care what else goes on in this town, and there's plenty going on. And you wait and see when this trail comes, there's going to be nothing but problems. You're going to get it day in and day out, morning to night. And for the record, I strongly oppose that trail. It's going to be nothing but problems. It's going to be, and we're going to pay for it. It's going to be a budget line item for repair, maintenance, and patrol. And after dark, all the motors are going to come out. You wait and see, and then we're going to have lights, and we're going to pay through the nose. And you know, tonight again, I heard the fact that parents can't feed their kids. What in the devil is going on with that? They can't feed their kids. And you know, if parents are in dire circumstances, or you know, like sickness or losing their jobs, it's understandable. But when I hear how many don't feed their kids, maybe some of those are getting subsidized and so on and so forth. Is it that they have these kids and they're just too lazy to feed them? And then it's up to the town to feed them? I mean, it should be looked into. And I say nothing about the fact that if there's hard circumstances, dire circumstances, that we help them out. But that's where we stand. I'm so tired from sitting here all night. I can't even think of another thing to say, which is you're probably very happy.
Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Yes, sir? Oh, all right. Nicole, you're up there. Go ahead.
Nicole Palmieri, 20 Julie Road. I just want to say to the people who are criticizing the parents who came out here and they never see him anymore, anywhere else, we never see you at the Board of Ed meetings or at the Board of Ed budget sessions. So maybe you should think about that before you criticize people for only coming to certain things.
Yes, sir. Mr. Albert.
Dave Albert, 56 Hollyberry Lane.
Good.
I am one of the old people that they mention on Facebook whose kids have gone through school, and but I do have just one question. How much is the $200,000 to the average taxpayer? Does anyone know?
I don't have that math done. I don't know.
Roughly.
Keep talking. I could probably.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because that's very important. I mean, I heard, you know, like I said, I'm one of the old people that came out here and said.
Well, you're talking 14 hundredths of a mil. So what's our average? 135,000. 140. Yeah. I'll use 140. That's $20.
$20.
Well, $20.07.
Okay, that could be the, okay, yeah. Like I said, I came up here and I do have concerns in that the education budget continues to creep. It gets a bigger piece of the pie all the time. And I voted no because I was very upset about that teacher contract, that extension. And I've been very vocal about it. But, you know, $20 a year, I'll think about it. Maybe I'll vote yes. Maybe I'll vote no again. I don't know. But, and again, I have to restate, my kids went through Plainville High. They got a great education, but the last couple of years of expenditures from the board are unsustainable in the long run. They're just unsustainable. And I think that's why people are voted no. But again, you guys put a good presentation together, and I'm not doubting a word that you say, and the parents are very powerful with what they say with their kids, and I take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Anybody else?
Kathy?
Joanne?
Yeah, Kathy, I forgot to say something. Did I use up all my time?
Yes, you sure did.
I did?
Yes, you did.
I got something really nice to say.
Oh, then I'd love to hear it if it's really nice. You're all groaning, Joanne. I don't know. You have like a second. Just say, everybody, good luck.
What I want to say is that maybe a big savings can be, now, Maureen's going home to her hometown, okay? That's wonderful. She's making a full circle. And I feel that he's got my vote. Number one, you're looking at him right now. He can slide right into that
There
spot.
you go, Steve. You're all set.
And
okay, quickly, Joanne.
The two
very
assistant
quickly.
principals and principal can maybe step up a little bit more to the plate and help him out so that we don't have to hire an assistant superintendent.
Okay. Thank you
See?
for that thought.
It can help them out.
Great.
And that's a big saving right
Okay.
there. Okay, I got it in. Thank you.
I second that.
Yeah, there.
Okay, if there are no others that wish to speak to the council that have already had enough.
Thank you, Kathy.
Oh, it's always my pleasure, Joanne, indeed. Okay. All right, I'm going to close the public comment section on such a lovely note, and we're moving on through our agenda. We do not have any old business, so we're going to move into our new business section of our meeting. We have a number of items here, so
Madam Chair?
number one.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, motion to approve the following proposals for the 2019 Neighborhood Assistant Act. The Congregational Church of Plainville, United Church of Christ, Energy Efficient Initiative, $150,000. Park Inc., Camp Trumbull, $3,000. Plainville Early Learning Center, air conditioning for toddler and preschool classrooms, $11,091. Prudence Crandall Center, energy efficiency, $29,253. Prudence Crandall Center Inc., annual appeal, $150,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion?
Kathy, just to
Yes.
clarify, these amounts are the amounts that they're looking for to participate under the program. Companies that donate to to these causes will get a tax break at the state level, not at the local level, not at the town level. So this does not affect local taxes or it's not money that's going to come from the town to these particular organizations. So I just want to make that clear. That's all.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, number two.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to accept the donation of a 19.55 acre parcel adjacent to the middle school of Plainville as open space from JNS Development LLC.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Just for clarification, we had looked at this some time ago, the council, and it wasn't up for any kind of action, but tonight we have an opportunity to do that. So I have a motion, I have a second. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Madam
opposed?
Chair?
Yes.
I'm going to abstain due to my relationship with the developer.
Okay. Okay, we have one abstention and 6 ayes. So the motion carries. Thank you. Number three.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to approve and authorize the town manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with American Excavating and Septic as recommended by the Economic Development Agency.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number four.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to adopt a resolution entitled Resolution Authorizing Application for Historic Preservation Grant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number five.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to approve the tax refunds is listed on the addendum.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Number six, before we make a motion, I would just ask that there's some discussion that would ensue. Has to do with the recommendation for the Board of Education 2020 budget, 2020 clarity, 2020 vision. Hopefully we all have it. So I'll open up the floor for discussion. We can talk about, there has been a number of numbers, if I can say that, out in the public, and lots of different communication about what one would entail, what another would entail. And we had obviously a great many parents and staff members and people who are interested in this as to how it's going to turn out come and speak to us tonight. So I would like to ask the council if they would like to offer their thoughts on where we should be going.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I really would not favor a cut the size of 200,000. for several reasons. First of all, it was a very, very close vote. It was rejected by only 12 votes. I don't think it was a mandate for a reduction of that size. If we have to do a reduction, I think it should be at a much more modest level. A few other points. Over the last few days, I reviewed twice, looking at the longer Board of Education document that's online. And a couple of things jump out. And that is, not only did we make some cuts during the council budget work in March, but a lot of cuts were made prior to that during the Board of Education budget work at all their sessions in February. And the other thing that really jumps out at me, there are, it was mentioned, for example, the health benefits, things over which you have, very little control. There are a number of other things when you look through the budget that really are non-discretionary costs. Certainly I know tonight somebody mentioned the paraprofessionals for special education. When you read the details, that sort of thing was proscribed by IEPs. It's not something you can choose to do or not do. That really jumped out at me too. And lastly, I think we need to look at the big picture. As a council, we do not decide the specifics of the Board of Ed budget. We do not tell the Board of Ed how to budget in terms of the specifics items. But certainly our role is fiscal, and I think part of that is we have an obligation to keep Plainville a town which is very attractive for people to live, to remain in Plainville, to work in Plainville, to do business in Plainville. And I think part of that is definitely making sure that we do have an excellent school system with a good reputation. So really, as part of our overall fiscal responsibility of a council, I think we have to look at making a much more modest reduction. And once again, my first reason as stated was it was a very, very close vote. It was only 12 vote difference. And that's my opinion.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to weigh in?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to just point out, because it was said that the budget came to the council from the Board of Ed at a 3%, and we cut the budget to 2.7, and I just want to provide some clarity to that. My math is not perfect, but I do remember we used some one-time revenues to pay for the Wheeler School busing.
Right.
So therefore, that's not really a cut. We took some one-time revenue for a
expense out.
one-time expense. So really, the council didn't cut that money out. The other one was we had some questions about a line item in electricity, and the Board of Ed, looking at it, agreed that their estimates of expenditures on a electricity line item could be brought by $50,000. So that's another 50 that we didn't cut out of it. They agreed to it. So it's not necessarily that the council cut that 0.3. I lost another 16 or 18,000. So I don't know what we did with that. But those are the two that I just at least wanted to point out, that we actually, the Board of Ed budget that came to the council is pretty much what went to vote. So I just wanted to point that out.
Right. Well, it's very close to what was presented to us from the board as well. So there weren't significant reductions to the board's budget once we received it. We also found some, as you said, some interesting and alternative methods for paying for some of the board expenditures that were originally in the budget. The other one that we did end up paying for were some lights at the turf field, at the football field, soccer field, and we found a way to actually pay for those out of a turf fund that we had. So that was not part of the expenditure. So I think the council did try to do some creative thinking about how we can take care of some of these expenditures, and we did. And I think that that was appreciated by the administration in doing that. So, any other comments?
I guess I'll continue and finish my my comments.
Oh, I thought you had more go. Oh, sorry, I thought you were done.
Oh, you didn't
keep going.
I'm just not fast enough.
Yep.
Another thing is that, I do agree that it is only, to Rosemary's point, it is only 12 votes. But at the same time, the fact that the budget did fail, we do have to do something. It'd be somewhat disingenuous as a council to, like one gentleman, he was making a joke, but to make a reduction of $5 is not something that I believe is acceptable. So there has to be some type of cut. To what that number would be, I guess we have to decide that as a council tonight.
All set?
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to weigh in?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
You know, the numbers started flying fast and furious last week that the council supports a $200,000 reduction to the Board of Education budget. I can by no means support a $200,000 reduction to the Board of Education proposed increase. I do believe that there would be catastrophic cuts to the board at that level. And I understand it failed by 12 votes, and I'm not one who says, well, it only failed by 12 votes. It failed. We do have to take the voters' opinion seriously, and we do have to do our job as presented by the charter to make a reduction to the proposed board increase. However, along the lines of Councilwoman Moranti's thinking, something much more conservative, I think we should look at that. You know, we do have another opportunity to go back to the public with a budget, but I cannot stand behind a $200,000 reduction to the proposed increase.
Well, do you have a number in mind?
I would propose somewhere in the $50,000 to $75,000 range. And that's keeping in mind that, you know, we've already had a budget issue with the tax and the insurance costs coming in $25,000 and higher than already budgeted. So, you know, when you start to net that into the whole thing, you're already $25,000 behind the 8 ball. Or in the hole. So that's where I'm coming up with that kind of number.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to weigh in?
Yeah, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just have a couple questions, and I don't know if through the chair of the board it would be more appropriate, but the $25,000, you know, that's something you haven't budgeted for. That's currently not in your budget, correct? Okay. And just, you know, with all the you know, people who got up this evening, the chair, I noticed you didn't really address the $200,000 reduction. And my question is simply, you know, is that something you support, or do you think that is something too much for the board to handle?
Who are you asking?
The board chair. Yeah, the $200,000, when you got up to speak, you really didn't address, many, or I think all of the other Board of Education people addressed the $200,000. You didn't. I'm just curious, do you also feel the way that the other Board of Education members feel as far as, you know, a $200,000 reduction would cause the cuts that are, or at least some of the cuts that are outlined?
Can't hear you.
Well, you might want to have her step up to the podium so people can hear her.
Can't hear her.
Yeah, I know. I'm.
Well, you can step up, but we're not going to start individually dragging people up to the podium for their opinion. But you know what? She already spoke at the public hearing, and you know, if she wishes to come up and give an answer to your question, but I'm reluctant to start having a back and forth right now. You can talk to the superintendent, of course, and Sam. They are the folks that put this budget together, and ask them what they think.
Well,
but,
and I appreciate
you know,
comments, but I don't think you have the authority to tell me who I can and cannot ask questions.
I'm just asking that we're not going to start with a dialogue of everybody that's sitting here.
That's fine, and I understand that, and I don't want to do that. I just had one question that I asked if she could answer.
Thank you.
And I think you answered it, but people can't hear you, so I think to just say it again in the podium.
My answer to that question was I was out sick for quite a while, and I did not have any information on the budget at all. So I cannot tell you that.
Okay. Joanne, you heard her?
Yeah, I heard.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Well, Madam Chair, you know, I'm actually, let me gather myself. I'm a little surprised by that answer, but you know, I think one of the things I did want to talk about was the $25,000, that we are, theoretically, the board is already seeing a reduction of $25,000, and I think we all agree with that with the insurance rates that came in, that we are already looking at that reduction. But, you know, similar to what everyone says, we need to reduce the budget. I think the question is, how much are we going to do that? I was at $50,000. I think especially with the $25,000 that the board's already looking at the bottom line being reduced by or I guess you can say it a different way, the expenditures are being increased by $25,000 simply because of the insurance rates coming in higher than we budgeted. You know, I can't support the $200,000. I know there's a lot of emotion involved. I know, you know, some people feel that, you know, what's presented here is cuts in a $200,000 reduction. It's just made to get people motivated to come out and speak. I don't think people are necessarily self-serving to come up here and speak to the council. You know, we all have those hot button issues that make us come out. You know, I know personally I don't make it to as much stuff, you know, outside of council meetings that I'd like to, because I do have other stuff. I do have 3 kids that I do enjoy watching them do stuff. And I choose to go watch them do stuff instead of, you know, attending senior center events or what have you. But I'm not going to dismiss people just because this is their hot button issue. I don't feel the $200,000 reduction is warranted. I think taking everything that we've heard, we certainly have to respect the results of the vote. I don't think we should be taking, including the $25,000. I don't think we should go more than $50,000. And I know the $200,000 was kind of a line drawn in the sand, so to speak, or that's the information I'm hearing. And, you know, until you guys actually say something publicly, I guess, you know, it's just secondhand information that I'm getting. But I would hope that you would reconsider that and that we could find something that, you know, at least 5 of us, but ultimately I think it's important that we all agree to it. And not only agree to it, but once we agree to something, that we actually put some of our weight into it as far as getting it passed. Because I think both the board and the council did a absolutely terrible job, and I'm included in that terrible job of getting people out to vote and expressing our support for the budget publicly and letting people know how much we stand behind the decisions we made, because we failed the community in that respect, as far as I'm concerned. You're happy?
Does anybody else have any thoughts?
You just said you're happy.
Madam Chair.
On the budget and some numbers? Joanne, we're trying to get this done here tonight, okay? Anybody else have any thoughts?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
When I woke up this morning, I was at the $200,000 to request the board to cut from their budget. After sitting through this public hearing tonight, and not being in the high school too long ago myself, I think that it is unfair to punish the children in this town by their parents' mistakes of not going to go vote. That being said, I'm definitely not at $50,000 either. I would be closer to the $150,000 range. And then when we talked about that $25,000 also being in there, added in their expenditures, I think that I could be at $125,000.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to opine?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I agree with Councilman Cox, and I think that everybody keeps saying it failed by 12 votes, but we also have the advisory question that we had, and 96% of the people that answered the advisory question said that the budget was too high. So 4% thought it was too low. That's a big percentage. And I also agree with Councilman Carrier saying that when he said that it would be disingenuous to take a $5 cut and think that that's okay, that that's what people meant when 96% of them voted that it was too high. So I'm not at the 200,000 anymore. I do think, I also agree with Ms. LaBella that this is a really good opportunity to make some changes in the administration with Dr. Brummett leaving and someone sliding into that position possibly from that's already in our school system. You know, there's a good opportunity to make some changes there and make some savings. So I don't feel that we need to eliminate sports and eliminate textbooks and all that. I think the cuts need to be made somewhere else. And I would be in the 125 to 150 range for that. So.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
We're still, go ahead.
Go, you want to
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I just would like to make a clarification on the advisory question vote. I know Councilwoman Tompkins mentioned about 96% of the people said it was too low. It is very
Too high.
Too high. Excuse
Too
me.
high.
Too high. It's clearly worded though. If you voted no, and then it goes on to ask the question: do you think it's too high or too low? So that 96% was of the people that had already voted no. Now, and there may have been a few exceptions to that where people voted yes and then also said too low because and I did confirm this with town staff last week, there was nothing that disqualified that kind of response. In other words, if you voted yes and then you did vote on the advisory question, it was still counted. However, if you look at the numbers, obviously it was still most of those who voted no, and that is the way the question is worded, if you voted no. So that 96% was for the most part, was from the people that had already voted no. It wasn't 96% of the people that voted overall. Just a clarification, and I'm sure, Councilwoman Tompkins, intended that too, but I just, for public information, wanted to make sure it was clear.
Okay. Well, we have a report that we received, the town budget meeting report, and the question is, shall the Board of Education budget for fiscal year 2019-2020 for $38,329,105 be adopted as proposed by the town council? Yeses were 372, noes were 384. The advisory question is this. Question 1, if you voted no, do you feel the budget is too high? 349 voted that it's too high. 18 said it was too low. Question 2, if you voted no, do you think the budget is too high? 381 said it was too high. 16 said it was too low. So that's interesting information as to how many people thought that budget was too high, irrespective. And I'm not discounting the fact that it was a 12-vote margin. The information we're getting from the majority of people that voted believe it's too high. So that's available if anybody wants to see this. We can make copies and people can take a look at that. So these are complex things. And there was a question tonight. Oh, Rosemary, I did not mean to speak. Are you all set?
Oh, I was done. I just wanted to make that clarification, Kathy.
Okay.
That the advisory question was stated for those who had already voted no. Yeah.
Right. And I know that some of this is difficult. I know that people were dismayed because they couldn't vote, and I was approached by a few people. Well, why can't we have an absentee ballot in order to vote on the budget? It's not quite that simple. In order to change the methodology by which we vote, we would have to have a charter revision commission appointed. They would work for probably almost 18 months. They wouldn't just go in there and work on that one part of our charter. The whole charter would be reviewed. You don't open up the charter just to tweak a little part of it. It's like our Constitution. You need to be thoughtful about doing that, and you need to understand why you're doing it and what are the ramifications of it. We just can't go in and add that we can have an absentee vote on the budget. So I want to be clear to some people that brought that up. It isn't quite that cut and dry in order to get that done. In regard to the budget, we are kind of far apart still right now. I do want to reiterate that the Board of Education is still receiving an $800,000 increase, even if there was a $200,000 reduction. It's an $800,000 increase if we reduced the operating budget by $200,000. There's also over a $300,000 capital expenditure for the Board of Education. Now, that's not considered here right now because that's taken care of when we voted on the entire budget with the town and the town side of it. So I do want people to understand that this budget is not anywhere near decimating the education system in the town of Plainville. What was catastrophic, I will say, and it happened here 2 years ago, was when then Governor Malloy withheld $2 million in ECS money from the town of Plainville halfway through the year. And the taxpayers of Plainville were given an additional tax assessment, and it was a 0.75 mil increase mid-year. That's catastrophic. That affected everybody, and it made a major difference in what was going forward. Also, the 0.75 mil increase is still in our budget. It's still in our base. That's still in there. And people, when we did that, did not have a real problem with it because they understood what was happening to the town of Plainville had nothing to do with the town council or the Board of Education. But our town met that obligation and increased taxes in order to take care of the education requirements in this town for a half a year. So please understand that these budgets are volatile. They can move in all different directions. The problems we're having now often is coming from the state level, not from the local level. We do our best to be creative about how we spend money and how we're going to fund it, but much of it is no longer in our control. The Board of Ed has mandates that they need to meet. They have contractual requirements. And I will tell you, so does the town side. We also have contracts that we have to honor. And we also have mandates that we have to fulfill. So this isn't as simple as some people might think it is. I do appreciate the families that came tonight because they came out to speak, and some of them with very heartfelt stories about what their families have been through and what their children have been through and some of the services they receive. And special education is also a very difficult line item in the Board of Education budget. And there are a great many laws and mandates that require the Board of Education to provide services for children. They must do that. They have to do it. So everything that they do is oftentimes driven by other rules that we have no control over as well. As far as the changes to the budget, I would support $125,000. However, we need to get 5 votes to do this tonight. So I'm hoping that we can get some more dialogue going. We are quite far apart, and we can't do anything. We have to put another budget out, and we need to probably get this done no later than this Thursday for publication purposes.
Tuesday, tomorrow.
The decision has to be made by tomorrow night. Yes.
By tomorrow night. Okay, so here we are.
Well, Madam Chair, can I just a couple things?
Sure.
Yeah, regarding the advisory question, I was one of the ones that voted yes and said too low. I can't wrap my mind around the fact that we bind ourselves to this advisory question, yet we don't allow people who vote yes to answer the advisory question. So to me, I think we need to make changes, and I don't know if we need to go into charter revision, but clearly we have to rephrase that advisory question, because we certainly don't want to eliminate, in this case, about 50% of the people who voted from participating in the advisory question that kind of tells us what we need to do if it's defeated. Yes. I don't know if I can tell you can talk. That's all.
Well, that was decided at the last charter revision.
The town manager wants to say something.
I will. He can after I finish. That was decided at the last Charter Revision Commission, and it was accepted by the council. I believe you were on the council at the time when that was discussed.
I made a mistake. I made a big mistake by approving.
You know, I will say the Charter Revision Commission had a number of public hearings to talk about these issues. That is a complication of, how we do this. And it's not, I don't know that it's a bad thing or a good thing. It gives the council information that we didn't have before. If a budget failed before, we would just be guessing. Well, we don't know if it failed because it was too high or too low. And both budgets were combined. We had no idea who people had a problem with. So it's helped to provide clarity, although obviously not enough. Robert?
At the time the Charter Revision Commission was looking into this, they got the state statutes authorize towns to have an advisory question.
Yes.
And the advisory question is worded exactly as it is on the ballot right now. So the towns don't, at least at that time, and I don't know if it has changed since then, could not craft an advisory question any different than the one that's there right now. So it isn't that if you wanted an advisory question, it needed to be worded in that fashion.
And through our charter, we could not change
You
that
couldn't change it to say, you know.
because our budget vote is considered an adjourned town meeting.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's just for the informational. We have what's considered an adjourned town meeting, not a referendum. And that's why absentee ballots are not allowed, because it's considered an adjourned town meeting.
Right. So we don't prevent people who voted yes from voting on the advisory question.
Yeah, but it's
We
not-
just don't encourage it because of the way it's written. But again,
Yeah.
we were somewhat handcuffed with regards to the language.
Well, and that's what, my point is, it just doesn't make sense that you're bound to this advisory question, but you don't allow everyone to vote on it. I just, that seems undemocratic in a way to me.
Well, we do allow you to vote on it. We just don't
Well,
encourage you to vote on it.
Well, you encourage people to vote no, is what you do.
And another, well, and
I know
another Connecticut statute that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So,
Well, take a number, I guess. The other thing I just want to say is, my concern with the board budget is, if you look at their salaries, their health insurance, they have somewhere in the neighborhood, I believe, of $1.2 million increase going into the next fiscal year. We're already just over $1 million. Taking 20% of that million, or even the 150, taking 15% of that increase, now we're even putting them further behind. And I think we did some very good work in presenting the first budget as far as finding ways, in some cases creative ways, to lower that mill rate and to make some decisions that made sense for the town. But in this case, I'm just stuck. I just can't support 150,000. That's just, to me, that's too much. We already know there's some fixed costs involved that they're already below. And I understand the argument. We don't tell them where to spend their money, but the bottom line is, we own this to some degree, and we can't hide behind the fact that we don't make the decision of where the money's spent, because we are responsible for this to some degree. And knowing what cuts are out there, and maybe not all the cuts need to be implemented depending on where we end up, but the bottom line is I think it's important that the council and the community understand where some of these cuts would go for. So I'm certainly. I'm not going to draw a line in the sand and say I'm not going above $50,000, but I still think 150 is too much. I try and meet in the middle if anyone's willing to do that, but I'm just reluctant to cut the board budget any more than that, for fear that we already know they're underfunded according to the numbers they gave us, and unless we just don't believe they're being honest about it, I think it's our responsibility. Once again, to just try and come to some kind of a compromise, and work through this.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
You think we could take 5 minutes to caucus? Would everybody
You have a motion?
be fine with that?
Caucus?
Like to take a motion to caucus?
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 We'll be back. We're going to reconvene if everybody would take a seat.
Where are we?
Thank you for your indulgence. It's important that we finish this tonight. As you can all understand, we have deadlines and we have things that have to happen, and I'm going to ask for a motion.
Madam Chair.
Excuse me. Wait a minute. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, Madam Chair. Now, I mean, hey,
Mr. Cox,
make
is
me
gonna
put
be
all
doing
that
the motion.
legwork in walking around. And
What happened?
Go ahead.
all right, Madam
What is-
Chair.
Yes.
Why was I funny? I don't get it.
Motion to approve and recommend the Board of Education fiscal year 2020 budget for $38,229,105.
Second.
Oh, I wanted to second it.
Bipartisan, man.
You lost out there, Mr. Wazorko. I have a motion and a second. I'd like any comments on the motion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So just in case you guys can't follow, it's a $100,000
100,000.
decrease. I think since I've been on the council, we've voted for that more than once. So I think it's something that they can, try to make some cuts, make some realized savings, whatever you got to do. Hopefully it doesn't hurt too bad.
Okay. Any other comments on this new number?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think this is a good compromise, and I hope that it works out.
Okay. Anybody else?
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
No, it's okay. Just you go.
I just like to say that, it's not an easy job to come up with these kind of numbers, and, you know, I think this council's done a nice job this whole budget season, working in a bipartisan effort to put out the initial budget and then find some middle ground here. You know, it's never easy, and I'm hopeful that this will pass. And I hope our support we can work together to put forward some support to the community. While it's not ideal, unfortunately, it's the best of a bad situation, and I'm fully in support of this.
Great. Anybody else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I will vote for this motion, you know, a little reluctantly. Certainly, the $100,000 was the ultimate max that I could live with. But
Understood.
And can sleep tonight, but you know, it's still more than I would have liked to have seen. But we have a duty to conclude this process, and I think we have to go out now and be proactive in getting the vote out and getting the budget passed.
Great. Anybody else have anything to say? I'd like to, Mr. Wazarko?
No, thank you.
Okay.
They've already said it.
They do a very good job of that. I would like to, again, thank everybody that participated, most especially the town council. This is, not to be too redundant, not an easy thing to do. And I think they took lots of things into consideration, and they listened to the folks that came here tonight, and they understand the impacts of some of these changes, and we believe that this is something that can benefit the schools and as well as being supported by the rest of the taxpayers. So I do certainly hope that we get greater participation to pass this budget and that we can move on and think about next year. Okay. So we have a motion. I have a second. If there are no further comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Madam
Thank
Chair?
you. Yes?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.